Scrunching my nose, I try recalling the person she's talking about. It sounds like someone worth remembering. I have no idea who you're talking about, but that is a little weird, I admit openly. A little? Honey mustard, Piper. Hazelnut spread, Jenna, I deadpan. She hops off the counter. Can we talk about you and your sexy professor again? Are you going to sleep with him? I drop the bag of cheese onto the counter and watch shreds of it go everywhere. Cursing, I brush it into a pile. Why would you even ask me that? No, we're not like that. She helps me clean up the mess. But you want to. You have to admit that. I don't have to do anything. She grabs my hand to stop me. As your best friend, I need to inform you that I'm concerned. I love you. It's because I love you that I feel the need to voice said concerns. Concerns? She turns me to face her. You don't want to ask for help. You've always been like that. I get you have Ainsley to look after, but you can ask me for help, and I'll come whenever you need. Like when a hot, grown-ass man wants to hang out with you. To work? He says it's work. Her brows arch. I want you to ask me to watch Ainsley so you can give yourself a chance. I click my tongue. I'm not seeing where you're concerned. Her hold tightens, the expression on her face suddenly serious. I'm concerned for your vagina. Yanking my hands away, I shake my head and focus back on the pizza. You're too much, Jen. And stop being worried about that part of me. I feel her burning gaze on me. You haven't been sleeping with Easton. Don't tell me I'm wrong, because I know he hasn't been here in the house or the town. And your mood is always better when you get a little something after hours. I say nothing. Ask me to watch Ainsley. I'm not sleeping with Carter, I whisper hiss, knowing that Ainsley is watching television in the other room. And keep your voice down. I don't need her hearing you. Her hands go up in mock surrender. So you're not going to sleep with him? Not now, but you might down the line if you two progress to that point. And don't give me that look, Piper. There's nothing wrong with you trying to have somebody in your life. Don't make excuses as to why you can't be happy. I sigh. I am happy, Jenna. But Carter could make you happier. Once again, I'm silent. Please? It's complicated with us, I reason. She knows he's my professor, and it doesn't seem to deter her. She likes that he gave me a chance to assist him, and even more that we knew each other when I was younger. In her mind, we make sense. In mine, we'd be a mess. You don't know that. Then, ask me, Piper. No. I'll watch Ainsley. I glare. She smiles. Shaking my head, I finish the pizza and put it into the oven without looking at her. I know she's watching me because the back of my head burns. She'll do this all night unless I tell her to stop. Even then, she'll find other ways to annoy me. Turning, I grip the edge of the counter and look at her puppy dog eyes. Why do you want me to go out with him so bad? There's a lot against us, you know. You're my friend, is her reply, her shoulders shrugging. I want to see you happy. If things with East aren't going to progress as more than casual sex, you should at least try with Carter. He knows you, your past, and might be able to help with the Danny thing. Jaw ticking, I go back to busying myself by cleaning up my dirty utensils. I don't know what you mean. She helps, saddling up beside me to wet a rag for the counter. You refuse to let go because it makes you feel something. But don't you want to feel more than pain, more than loss? What if Carter can give you that, Piper? Can he, though? I just don't think it's worth the stress, I admit quietly, running water for the dishes. He knows I liked him. Everybody did. That was then, she cuts me off. He said it himself, dude. You have a chance. Anything can happen. You're both older, consenting adults who have a complicated dynamic. You're graduating soon. Narrowing my eyes, I shift to look at her. She means business, staring back at me with her arms crossed over her chest. The rag is left on the countertop, long since forgotten. Do you think that makes a difference if people find out something happened before then? That's still a relationship we could both get in trouble for. Well, I don't think you should wait. Taking a deep breath, I count to 5. I don't think you have any say. It's not your life that could be ruined. It's mine. She's quiet, too quiet, and it doesn't take long for hurt to spread in her eyes. I feel bad, but it's the truth. Her life hasn't been flipped upside down like mine has. Jenna has no idea what it's like to be in my position. I have Ainsley to think about, I add, turning away from her and scrubbing one of the plates in the sink. It'd be selfish to even think about getting involved with somebody like him. Because of her or you? The counter question throws me off, but I don't falter from moving on to the next dirty plate. I mean it, Piper. You're the queen of excuses. I understand why you're hesitant, but you're not a reckless person. It isn't like I'm telling you to have sex with the guy in the classroom in front of everybody. Hell, ignore each other. You already went out on one date with him, and don't tell me otherwise. He paid even though you could have used the gift card. That's a date. Don't say that. It was. Jen, what are you so worried about? She demands firmly. I love you, but you honestly annoy me sometimes. The guy you admittedly crushed on for years finally gives you a second look. He took you out. He paid for your meal. He's helping you finish your master's. I may not know the guy as well as I know Easton. I want to tell her she doesn't know East, but I'm not even sure I really do. But he sounds like a good man. Definitely somebody you should give a chance to. See where it goes. My heart squeezes a little over the thought of my absent roommate. Jenna heard through the grapevine that he's supposed to be back tomorrow night. I don't know when. I didn't ask. I tell myself it's none of my business, regardless of our living arrangements. What's really stopping you? She finally asks quietly, her hand brushing my arm as she walks over to face me. When I meet her eyes, I bite down on my bottom lip and fight off the onslaught of tears that well there and blur her image. Everything. She hugs me. It'll be okay, Piper. I want to believe that. But do I? I'm not sure how she does it, but Jenna gets me to agree to watch Ainsley for the night so I can grade papers with Carter in his office. No dinner, no outings, just work. At least that's what I tell myself. But when I arrive at his office at the agreed-upon time in the late afternoon, the smell of Chinese food wafting from the opened door has my eyes narrowing and stomach growling. Knocking on the door jamb, he looks up from the computer and smiles at me. Sitting on the corner of his desk is a bag with a well-known Chinese restaurant logo on the front. I've seen the delivery vehicles coming and going when I walk to my car. You ordered food? Dropping my bag beside the usual chair I occupy, I study the various boxes and containers piled inside the delivery bag. He gives me a small smile and rolls back in his chair, standing to reach for the bag. I skipped lunch earlier because I had to head home for a tiny emergency. Figured I'd order some food for us while we work. His brows go up as he pulls one of the containers out, lips twitching upward as he passes it to me. You still obsessed with sweet and sour chicken? Cheeks blossoming with heat, I accept the container full of my favorite Chinese entree and plop down into the seat. Memories of begging Jessie and Carter to take me with them to the Chinese restaurant in the town over from where we lived buzzes to the front of my mind. Why do I feel like I'll never live those moments down with you guys? His low chuckle makes me shake my head as he places all the takeout containers on his desk before sitting back down. Jessie was adamant on not letting you come every time you asked, but you were insistent otherwise. Jessie never wanted me around, I grumble, popping open the food and searching for a utensil to use. Like I said before, I get it. You guys are older than I am, and it probably wouldn't have been fun to have me along wherever you two went. He passes me chopsticks and a plastic fork, giving me a knowing look. I never figured out how to use those, but I know you did. And if it makes you feel better, I was always cool with you tagging along. Jessie just had a lot going on back then. I rip open the chopstick wrapper. I know he did. Between his mother and sister, I just wanted to be there for him. That's why I wanted to be around. To look after him. Show I cared. Cared. Care. Same difference. He watches me for a moment. He knows you do. We actually spoke the other day. I mentioned you were doing your student teaching with me. He asked how you were. I snort, picking up a piece of chicken. I bet you told him I'm riding on rainbows and unicorns over here. That I'm your favorite student/assistant. Am I right? Amusement lightens his features. You know, I must have forgotten to enlighten him on the rainbows and unicorns thing, but he knows you're doing well. He's proud. Refraining from rolling my eyes over that, I pop some chicken into my mouth and chew slowly while he digs into his own food. He leans back in his chair, shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows, and cocks his head at me. I squirm. What? His lips rub together. Nothing. You're thinking something. What? He rests the box of some sort of noodles down on his lap. You're different. A good different. Putting my container down on his desk, I grab a napkin and wipe my lips off. I'd hope so. I was, 16, 17, the last time we saw each other? People do tend to change in that time period. 10 years, in fact. He just hums out in agreement and proceeds to pick up his food and eat again. Is everything okay? You said you went home because of an emergency. He nods, catching a fallen piece of food before it hits his lap and draws it back into his mouth with his finger. For some reason, I'm transfixed by the movement and have to force my gaze away before he sees me staring.
Yeah, Cap got out.
My brows pinch.
Cap? My dog.
I perk up. I didn't know you had a dog. What kind is it? Is it a boy or a girl?
I forgot how much you love dogs,
he muses, reaching forward and grabbing a napkin for himself.
He's a Great Dane who loves to escape. My neighbors always call me when they see him lingering in people's yards. Thankfully, he doesn't wander into traffic. The big brute is terrified of vehicles.
For the better, I agree. I try picturing him with a Dane and smile to myself. It seems like the perfect dog for you. Why Cap? I notice the faintest pinkening of his cheeks, which makes me very inclined in hearing his answer.
I named him after Captain America. It was either that or Steve, and frankly, I thought Cap worked better.
A humorous smile spreads across my face as I study him.
Agreed. Though Jesse named a dog Bruce once after Batman, so...
We both laugh. Do you have a picture? I fidget in my chair to get comfortable as he reaches for his phone and swipes the screen a few times. When he turns it to face me, an even bigger smile stretches my lips when I see the white and black speckled dog standing next to him. That's such a huge-ass dog. He's cute, though. He clicks his phone screen off and sets it back down.
He's a good boy, besides the occasional escape routine. I think he gets antsy being alone in the daytime. Elizabeth used to.
When he cuts himself off, I tilt my head, wondering why. He clicks his tongue and stares at his food for a moment.
Elizabeth would stay at home with him as a puppy. I think he got used to it and has some form of separation anxiety.
It's none of my business. Do you miss her sometimes? My mom mentioned her before in passing. You guys were engaged. Even if you separated amicably, there's got to be some feelings still. Without hesitation, he responds.
Of course. I was going to marry her. Spend forever with her. Even if we did, I wouldn't have been miserable. We were happy for the most part. Content.
I frown at that. Love should be more than contentment, though.
Exactly.
Itching for more information, I dig despite my conscience telling me not to. What made you realize contentment wasn't enough? I know from personal experience that it's hard to figure out what feelings are real or not. He gives me a thoughtful look before setting his food down in front of him and leaning back with his hands on his stomach.
It's not so much about what feelings are real or not. There isn't such thing as fake feelings. For me, it was more about being aware for feelings in order to better understand mine. If it was the forever kind of love, we wouldn't have been searching for something else.
I cross my legs under me in the chair, interest bubbling inside me. What were you looking for? For a long moment, he doesn't answer. Instead, he stares off like he's lost in thought. When the tip of his tongue swipes across his bottom lip, I track the movement with my eyes. He looks then, catching me staring at his mouth. My face heats with embarrassment. His eyes narrow slightly, thoughtfully.
I wasn't sure then, but I think I am now.
My brows furrow down. He picks up his food.
I'm looking for something that's easy. No forced conversations or hurt feelings when I poke fun. I want to talk about work and life and old memories. What I want is this.
I'm taken aback by his answer, staring at him with a new kind of feeling in my heart. It doesn't squeeze with hurt this time, but pumps with anticipation and nervousness. Carter, he gestures toward my food.
Eat before it gets cold. There's more here. Rice, vegetables, dumplings. You still like those too, right?
My lips open, but nothing comes out. What is happening right now?
Can I ask you something?
He asks the question with such casualness that I almost forget what he'd just said.
Sure.
It was Danny, he murmurs.
Right? The person you struggled figuring out if you had real feelings for or not?
My shoulders tighten as I sit back, picking at my food again to stall. There was never a doubt I had feelings for him. It was him who didn't have the same kind for me. That's what always confused me. How could one person fall hopelessly in love with somebody else who doesn't feel the same? That means everything I believe in is a lie.
He pauses. What do you believe in?
That true love only exists once, I whisper in return, not meeting his eyes. I sit in the chair, staring at my food, no longer hungry, despite the way my stomach tells me to fill it with every strong scent of greasy food that I breathe in from the selection around me. That heartbreak can't hurt me more than once. That things happen for a reason. I hear his chair move from his weight, leaning forward, and feel the burn of his inquisitive eyes roving over my face.
And you don't believe those things anymore?
His tone is gravelly, low, weaved with interest that my heart pounds harder over. Wetting my dry lips, I look up. If any of that were true, I never would have watched Daniel McCrae get married to another woman, have a beautiful baby girl, and pass away. His throat bobs, but he's silent. So, yeah, everything I knew was a lie.
Piper.
I shrug, forcing a smile that's no longer foreign on my face. It's tight, uncomfortable, but resembling some mask that indicates I'm okay. The way Carter looks at me, studies me with narrowed brown eyes, tells me he knows I'm not.
There's more than one person out there for us,
he states with the tip of his head. Settling back in his seat, he smiles in a way that seems genuine, not fake.
There's somebody for us in every situation, people we need in the moment.
The more those words soak in, the more hope I have in believing he's right. Maybe one day I can even claim them to be true. One day I can say I've experienced 3 kinds of love. The one I lost, the one I found, and the one I reconnected with. I think about Danny, about Easton, and I stare at Carter. Is there something going on here? I ask in an audible tone, observing the food and the conversation that comes a little too easily.
The truth?
I nod, listening to my heart pumping to a new beat that doesn't hurt, but keeps me hyper-aware of the way his body shifts toward mine. His chair squeaks, his head tilts, and his eyes darken. I take in every part of him. He says 5 words. 5 words that change everything.
I'd like there to be.
In that moment, I hold my breath. I let goosebumps pimple my arms. I let the hurt that simmered for so long inside of me loose into the wild, so it can't be contained in the organ drumming within my chest. Instead, I repeat his words in my head. I'd like there to be. Those words make all the difference. Chapter 20. The evening spent with Carter ended in a full stomach and permanent smile on my face. Our conversation turned into reminiscing in between paper grading. Jokes were made, we teased each other about the stuff we did growing up, and he chuckled every time my cheeks would turn red when I remembered something embarrassing that I did to try getting his attention. Jenna was disappointed when I came home at a decent time, without so much as a peck on the lips to tell her about, even though I told her nothing like that would happen. When we finished grading the assignments, Carter asked if I wanted any leftovers, mentioned grabbing dinner again sometime soon, and smiled before saying goodbye. Nothing was uncomfortable, and the smile on my face, the one still wavering there, is the only reason Jenna didn't push me. I'm sitting on the living room floor with Ainsley, playing Tea Party, when she begins signing to me about the fake food in front of us. Our next course began yesterday, and I know the next stage will improve our communication in ways I only dreamed about. She's open to talking this way, and it thaws the worry coating my heart all this time. We're in the middle of having fake tea and cookies when the front door opens for the first time in too long. Both Ainsley and I look at it as Easton makes his way in, his eyes immediately finding ours, where we're perched around the coffee table. His gaze drifts to the food and plate set, the very ones he brought her for Christmas, before he tips his head. It's nearing March, but the cold weather hasn't broken. Cold air drifts in behind him as he shuts and locks the door, the chill pebbling my arms with goosebumps. "Welcome back," I tell him quietly. His grip on the strap of his black backpack hanging from his shoulder loosens, then tightens as he examines the living room. Toys are scattered everywhere from Ainsley's playtime antics, and a partial blanket fort is constructed next to the couch. I tried making one like he did the day he watched her, But when Ainsley and I stepped back to examine the horrible job I did, she yanked on my shirt and signed, "He did it better."
Piper, Judette.
Once again, a smile forms on Ainsley's face over their special nickname. Every time I see the sliver of white from her happy smile, it tugs on my heartstrings.
How was the convention?
He stops moving toward the stairs to look at me, not saying a word. I clear my throat. Jenna saw the sign on the shop door. His chin dips.
It was good.
Rubbing my lips together, I manage a nod before pushing myself up. Mind if we talk for a minute? I'm sure you're busy, but... Letting my words fade, I gnaw on the inside of my cheek while he contemplates his answer. When he finally bobs his head, I sign to Ainsley that I'll be right back and follow him upstairs. When he opens his bedroom door and walks in without looking back at me, I hesitate. It feels weird entering his domain when he's always come into mine. I stop at the door, glancing around the beige walls like the rest of the house is painted, noting very few personalized items littering the room. There aren't any picture frames or trinkets or posters, just a shelf with some books on them, a nightstand that doesn't match his bed frame with a light on it, and a dresser with a half-dead plant on top with some folded clothes next to it. His bedding is dark, his curtain light, and nothing about what I see is Easton. Then again, what do I know about him? He's quiet, cautious, and good in bed. He gets along with kids, or at least Ainsley, and would give you the shirt off his back. His love for art design made him thrive as a tattoo artist, and his best friend and co-owner is the only other person he seems to talk to besides me.
What do you want to talk about? He grumbles, setting his bag down on his bed and finally turning to me. Where's all your stuff? I blurt. His brows go up. What stuff?
I hesitate, regretting even asking when I hear the irritation in his tone.
You don't have any pictures. The curt reply comes quick. Don't have anyone worth remembering.
It pierces my heart as he turns back to his bag and takes out clothes and a few other items.
Is that all you wanted to talk about? I've got shit to do.
My jaw ticks.
You don't have to be a dickhead, Easton. Not that you care, but I was worried when you didn't come home.
His back straightens, shoulders pulling back as he abruptly faces me.
Why would you care?
I blink. Because I do. Crossing my arms over my chest, I add. I don't know if that's a foreign thing to you, but you do have people who give a shit. You could have texted me saying you were going away for a while. That way I didn't think anything bad happened.
Stop, he grinds out.
My eyes widen. Stop what?
I don't have to report to you, Piper.
Lips parting, I find words lacking in response to him. I know he doesn't have to report to me. I've reminded myself of that multiple times. But doesn't he see that I care? That we're friends? I know that. I just...
What?
He challenges. Jesus! I throw my hands up. Why are you being such an ass? I thought we were friends. Friends tell each other if they're going to be gone. That way people don't think they're trapped in a ditch somewhere hurt. I'm so sorry for worrying about you. I'll try not to give a shit next time. Starting to walk away, I hear him curse before calling out to me.
Stop. I'm just... Shit, I'm tired. I didn't mean to snap. I don't know how to do the friends thing.
That halts me. You have Jay.
Yeah, well, I haven't slept with him.
I cringe, slowly turning to face him again. My palm rests on the door jamb. I can see where that puts us in an awkward situation. That doesn't mean I don't care about you. He just rubs the back of his neck. You're right, though. You don't owe me any explanations about where you're going or who you're going with. I relent softly. If it came off that way, I'm sorry. It's just that his eyes stay locked on my face and wait. Danny died leaving my apartment. Car accident. I didn't know until Mabel called me because the hospital contacted her to identify the body. Another curse escapes his lips.
I didn't know that.
I shrug. We don't know each other, is all I offer him, smiling the best I can. I just want you to know that I want to be friends. If that's too weird, I get it. How we left things the other day was... It sucked, honestly. I won't push for anything that makes you uncomfortable, though.
You don't make me uncomfortable.
You were angry with me, I murmur.
More like myself,
he mumbles, just loud enough for me to hear. But I don't think he meant me to. He clears his throat and sits on the edge of his bed, resting his elbows on his knees, and looks around the room.
I was in the system until I was 18. Never got adopted. Never found a good home. I don't have family worth putting in frames and displaying anywhere. Jay and I don't really get pictures together, and he's the only one I have, besides you."
He says the last part so quietly it's almost full of uncertainty. It doesn't take long for that to fall from his features, as if the hesitation of our status never crossed his mind. I give him a sad look. "I didn't know."
"I didn't want you to."
"If you ever want to talk about it," he shakes his head.
"The past is the past, Piper. There's a reason I don't dwell on it. Some things can't be changed. That's life. I know I'm lucky even if I never got adopted or given a chance. I was never beaten, neglected, starved, or abused, like so many others in the system are. I've heard some awful shit and accepted that getting out unscathed is nothing short of a miracle. That's all that matters, all that needs to be said."
Rubbing my upper arm, I manage to nod, even if I don't agree. That has to weigh on his conscience, even if he pretends it doesn't. "Do you mind me asking about your birth parents?"
"I don't know much about them."
"You've never tried asking?" His eyes darken as he scrubs the palm down the side of his face, the muscles in his arm flexing from the movement.
"I was told they were young when they abandoned me on the steps of a church for a pastor to find the following morning. I was cold, struggling to breathe, and had to be in the hospital for a month to recover before social workers came and took me away. They were never found. I never asked."
I can see why he wouldn't. Sometimes it's better not to ask questions if you don't want the answers. Then again, I've always been the opposite. "You don't think you'll ever wonder?"
"Piper," he sighs heavily. "No, I don't think I'll ever wonder why they gave me up. They did for whatever reasons they felt were justified, and it's over with. I'm content with my life. Why would I disrupt that?"
My mind instantly goes to the conversation I had with Carter in his office. "You shouldn't have to settle with contentment. Listen, you obviously do what's best for you. I'll back you no matter what, because that's what friends do. But if you ever feel the need to talk, just know I'm here." He doesn't say anything. Clicking my tongue, I nudge my bare toes against the carpet. "About before you left," I press my lips together for a moment before nodding once in encouragement to myself. "I'm sorry about upsetting you. When I went out before, it really wasn't a date." His eye twitches.
"Before," he repeats slowly, looking away. "I take it you've had dinner since?"
I try to keep my voice even. "He ordered us something." I'm not sure why I tell him. Maybe it's because it seemed so final when he blew me off, like he didn't care about it because we were just sleeping together. Anyway, I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm here if you need anything. Roommate, friend, whatever." He just looks at me.
"What about you?"
That catches me off guard.
"What about me? Are you content?"
When I realize he's asking about Carter, I let my lips part as oxygen slowly floods my lungs. There are many things I could answer. I could be honest, I could lie, or I could avoid it altogether. But I meant what I said to him. I want to be there for him, which means it's a two-way street. "I'm working on it," I admit. He simply nods. "You should too," I add. "Work on being happy, I mean. Nobody should settle for anything less. Life is too short for that." My voice breaks as I think of Danny. He'd been happy. I knew as much. Willow made him that way. Ainsley, Mabel, me. He was surrounded with the kind of happiness I strive to experience too. His death took that from me. Maybe, just maybe, Carter can change that. And the way Easton watches me for a long, stretched-out moment, I wonder if he has somebody that he's willing to find happiness with too. He blinks.
"Yeah, Piper, I'll work on it."
I smile. He doesn't smile back. Teaching Carter's class has become a favorite part of my day. Being in front of the classroom feels natural. It clears my head from everything except what's in the moment. Carter could see that when he watched me. I noticed as much. I also ignored it because I couldn't risk looking at him like I wanted to. When the classroom empties every time, my heart goes into overdrive as we clean up our things and listen to hordes of students walking in and out of the building outside the room. There is something lingering in the air, a feeling, an unspoken thought. Today, we're slower. We pick up every piece of paper with strategy. He stays close to me while collecting his textbook and packing his bag, and I track my movements that leads my arm to brush his. There are no other sounds besides the thump, thump, thump of my heartbeat. It's when there's nothing left to pick up and put away, and mere feet separating us from the door, when we finally glance at each other. Me through my lashes, and him straight on without apology. Those brown eyes heat my cheeks and stir my mind with the encouragement I've been getting from Jenna and my own conscience. Is there something here?
I'd like there to be.
We haven't talked about it, but we haven't skated around it either. We've just done what we're here to do, teach and learn, and that makes this easier. This, us, whatever it is.
You're doing well, he says softly, bumping my shoulder gently with his. I can tell you love being up there.
Nibbling my lip, I situate my bag on my shoulder. It feels good to be there in front of them. I wasn't sure this would be the right path for me when I first started. I was too shy.
He cocks his head. You were never that shy growing up. What changed?
My shoulders lift on their own accord. I did, I guess. Time, practicability. We begin walking to the door side by side. When I was an undergrad, I chose a history major because it's the only subject I love. The past fascinates me. Seeing what the future holds because of it has always kept me on my toes. But then Danny's accident happened, and I wasn't sure I was going to finish my degree because I didn't have a game plan. And with Ainsley in my care, I knew I needed one.
So you decided to teach,
he confirms. I nod, thanking him for holding the exit door open for me as we walk outside into the brisk morning air. It made sense. A lot of the people I had classes with were moving on to their masters for teaching, or already a dual major on that path.
But you love it. I can see it.
I follow him down the crowded paved path of students on their way to various classes. It doesn't take me long to formulate a response, because I know in my heart I do. I fell in love with having a plan. I'd always been organized. My friends teased me about liking school and focusing on grades, and trying to be on top of things. But my future was one thing that always seemed uncertain. In a horrible way, Danny gave me one. Just not the one I thought he'd give me.
He gave you Ainsley.
I lick my bottom lip before drawing it into my mouth, heart easing with tenderness over the small strawberry blonde in my head. He gave me somebody to love. Staring at the salted ground as we walk toward the administration building with his office housed inside, I struggle to swallow past the lump in my throat when I repeat those words to myself. Danny couldn't love me. He knew it. I knew it. But he gave me somebody who could. Tears well in my eyes that hurt to hold back. Before I can stop it, one rolls down my cheek and lands on the ground. Carter murmurs something before tugging me toward the building. We're silent until we get to his office. He unlocks the door and gently guides me in. Not one person looked at us the entire way. Not caring, unknowing. And when the door closes behind me,
"Piper,"
he whispers, drawing me into his body in a tight hug. I find myself melting into his warmth, burying my now damp face into his shirt and winding my arms around his torso. His cheek rests on the top of my head. I'm not sad. What am I? I shake my head and stay in the position we're in, needing this. Needing him to hug me and remain silent and just be warmth in a cold season. When my thoughts are collected, I move my face enough to speak without jumbling my words into his chest. I'm happy that I have her, but that means it was at his expense, his life, Carter. It took him dying for me to feel such an impenetrable love for another human, and I hate myself for it.
Hey.
His hold tightens on my body, one of his arms sliding just enough to hook around the small of my waist and pull me harder against his body.
You do not need to hate yourself over that. You have no reason to be guilty or any other bad thing just because you love his daughter. He gave you a gift because he trusted you with it. Danny knew what he was doing when he gave you that responsibility.
But did he? Did he know my future was never planned? Or that there were days I could barely function on my own? I was isolated. I hated going out. I considered college a period of stalling. That way I didn't have to live life yet. The more I think, the more I realize he did. Carter is right. Danny knew exactly what he was doing when he put my name down on that piece of paper that changed my life forever. I didn't resent him. Not for not loving me. Not for giving me Ainsley. Things happened for a reason. When I peel myself away and blink up at him with sore, watery eyes, his expression is soft as he studies me. One of his hands comes up, his thumb brushing at my wet cheek, as he leans forward and presses a light kiss to my opposite one. My heart stops. My breath holds. And when he draws back and smiles with his palm cupping the cheek, I know I'll be okay, because I have him in some way, some form, and some fashion.
I'll always be here if you need to talk, Piper. You know that, right?
Thump, thump, thump. My lips part. I know. In this very moment, with little room between us, I feel the shift. He looks at me in a new light, not like the teen he used to know, or his best friend's little sister, and definitely not as his student. Chapter 21. It's well past midnight when I creep downstairs, with tired eyes and a headache, unable to fall back asleep. After popping a couple pills and laying in bed with no luck, all I wanted was a cold glass of water and background noise. Curling up in a ball on the couch, I rest my head on the piled-up pillows and close my eyes once I put a feel-good show on. The throbbing in my temples only eases when I lower the volume and loosen my body to settle into the cushions. I'm not sure what time it is when I hear a soft voice ask,
"Can't sleep?"
Flickering my eyes open, I see a shirtless Easton in black sweatpants with a glass of water in his hands.
"Headache."
He sits in the armchair.
"Take something for it?"
Sipping his water, he looks at me with wary eyes.
"You're pale."
I don't tell him that I've been staying up late doing homework, grading papers, and thinking about Carter and the dinner he asked me out on the day before. Stress and overthinking have a lot to do with the current state of my temples. I took some already. Thanks. He makes an affirmative noise. Can't sleep either? At first glance, he doesn't look that tired. He got home early and went upstairs after saying hi to Ainsley and me, where I was helping her do homework in the living room.
No.
I don't ask if he wants to talk because I know he would if he wanted to. Sorry. He scrubs at his clean-shaven jaw.
It's cool. What are you watching?
His eyes travel to the television screen, showcasing one of my favorites.
Looks girly.
It's a weird reality TV show that I honestly didn't think I'd like, but do. It is, but it's not bad. A group of people get put into this building without any interaction face-to-face. They can only talk through text message. He blinks, then makes a face. I stifle a laugh. It's a guilty pleasure show. Some people catfish the others, but there's a lot of genuine people who just remain themselves throughout the game. They vote each other out using an anonymous rating system.
So it's Big Brother meets Survivor.
Cracking a smile, I answer. Pretty much. He doesn't say anything else as he watches it with me, making noises when somebody says something weird, or the players overly flirt to build alliances. Easton isn't a flirt, not an intentional one, but I wonder if he realizes he doesn't need to be. All it takes is him giving somebody an intense look before panties everywhere melt right off women's bodies. I snort to myself over the thought, catching his attention.
What's so funny?
Trying to pass it off like somebody did something funny wouldn't even work, because nothing interesting is happening right now. I was just trying to picture you in the game. He remains quiet. You'd be voted off pretty quick.
Why?
I look over at him, sitting up slightly so I see him better. Well, you'd have the looks advantage with the ladies if you chose to use your real pictures. But it's the personality that keeps people in the game. Like the bromance between Max and Alex. They're forming connections, using words. One of his brows lifts.
Are you saying I don't know how to use my words?
I click my tongue. I'm saying it takes somebody with a strong personality to win this sort of game. Someone who's willing to flirt with the right people and befriend the others to keep themselves safe. Another throaty noise comes from him.
I would make it at least a couple days. There are better ways to get people to like me if my personality doesn't do the trick.
Rolling my eyes, I remind him of something important. You can't sleep with the contestants, Easton. There are cameras literally everywhere in the apartments. Even if they let you meet them face to face, you'd just be creating porn. And who doesn't love porn? Both my eyebrows raise over that question as heat creeps up the back of my neck. I guess he has me there, but I choose not to comment on it. If it makes you feel better, I'd probably be voted off in the beginning, too.
I don't buy that. If you go in as yourself, people will love you.
His voice is uncharacteristically soft as he delivers the sweet sentiment that makes my lips stretch upward. Headache easing, I loosen a sigh. That's sweet, but I feel like the downside would be my alliance with the guys. They're all flirting to try making the right connections. Almost all the real people playing are doing it to stay in. I'm a terrible flirt. We're talking awkward.
Now I feel like I've missed out,
he muses, picking up his water to finish it. I shake my head. Trust me, I'm saving you. You'd never want to talk to me again.
I doubt that.
Humming, I focus back on the TV. Or they'd all think I'm so irresistibly adorable, they all want to tuck me in their back pockets. His chuckle makes my smile grow. He can pretend he doesn't find the show interesting, but he watches it like he does. I can tell he's calculating who will be voted off and who will form the alliances that'll save them. When he leans back and spreads his legs to get comfortable, I know he'll want to watch the next episode. So we do. I wake up when something stabs me in the ribcage and sends pain shooting through my body. When my eyes open, I'm instantly met with a face full of strawberry hair tucked in the front of me, and a pointy elbow digging into my side. I wince and try not to rouse the little girl who tucked herself onto the couch at some point last night. Looking over when I hear a faint sound of deep snoring, I notice Easton still perched in the chair with his face resting against the back. We all slept in the living room. Bladder screaming at me to empty it, I try figuring out how to get up without waking Ainsley. It's barely light out, which tells me we have time before she needs to be up, so I shift ever so slightly and practically yelp when a voice cuts through the silence.
Need help?
Biting my lip to keep quiet, I let my tired eyes drift back to my roommate. He's scrubbing at his hooded lids as he yawns and tips his head toward Ainsley. I just nod, watching him get up and roll his neck before walking over and carefully picking her up. He cradles her against his chest while I slide off the couch, then slowly lowers her back down and pulls a blanket up to cover her. And I watch them with something filling my chest that I can't decipher. Not wanting to analyze it, I escape to the bathroom to relieve myself and quickly wash my hands, run a brush through my hair, and head back downstairs to see Ainsley still sleeping soundly where Easton left her. I listen to him make noise in the kitchen. When I walk in, he gestures toward the coffee pot, which he already turned on.
Should be done in a few. Want me to cook breakfast?
I look at him, and I think, thank you. It's my first thought, but many more accompany it. Ones I don't let myself ponder on as I grab a mug from the cupboard and set it on the counter. Only if you're having some. I know you probably want to run this morning. His palm reaches behind his neck and kneads at the skin.
Nah, I think I'll take it easy today. Slept wrong and think I pulled something.
Here. I walk behind him and reach up, taking over his hand and feeling the knots in his neck and shoulders. Working them out, he rolls his head forward and groans as I dig my thumbs into one of the tougher areas.
Fuck, that feels good.
You were twisted when I woke up, I note quietly, trying to get the knot to loosen. It doesn't surprise me or sore. He doesn't reply, just absorbs the message I'm giving him. I don't really think about how I shouldn't be touching him, even if it's innocent. A friend helping a friend. 2 roommates. But then he turns and looks down at me. My hands drift to work the tops of his shoulders as he watches me with dark eyes. I let out a quiet breath as he watches me with the same intensity that weakens my knees. My heart reacts in one way, with fullness, and my body with another. He doesn't make a move. There's no kiss or touch or words that make this more than just me massaging his shoulders. But the look. He's the first one to step back, nostrils flaring slightly.
What kind of eggs do you want? I think we still have stuff to make omelets.
It takes me a moment to find my words, my body still searing from whatever just passed between us. Scrambled is fine for both Ainsley and me. I can pop the toast in.
Bacon? We're out. Want me to get some today?
I pause, faltering on the twist tie that keeps the bread bag closed. Shaking myself out of it, I muster a smile. Yeah, that'd be great. We get busy with breakfast, me with the toast, him with the eggs. When the coffee is done, I fill the cup and wrap my greedy hands around the mug and breathe in the strong scent that helps wake me up a little faster. Drinking half of it before I decide to wake Ainsley, I set 3 plates down on the island and place silverware next to them as he finishes off the eggs. When Ainsley is up and sitting beside me in front of the plate that Easton makes quick to cover with food, I observe the scene with a new kind of interest. Everything about it is domesticated, normal. After breakfast is in front of us all, I wait until Ainsley and him start eating before I let my gaze wander over both of them. Ainsley doesn't notice at all, but Easton does, and the look he gives me. I quickly glance down, too unsure and unconfident to keep the stare. I focus on my food, on Ainsley, on my headache being gone. Anything but Easton. Chapter 22. For the first time in years, March leaves winter in the rear view and offers us 50-degree weather for the first 2 weeks. No snow, just sunshine. It leaves me breathing a little easier when I drive Ainsley to school and me to campus. There is no internal pep talk before I get behind the wheel, or any more panic attacks when ice coats the roads. The flowers in the front lawn planted around the dogwood tree begin to bloom, mixing with the pretty white blossoms on the branches above them. It brings color to the yard that's otherwise a murky green and brown from the melted snow and mud. But I don't complain, not even when Ainsley chooses to go outside in her good clothes and rain boots to jump around until she's dirty from head to toe. She smiles. Like me, she loves the nicer weather. I don't know if it's because she can go outside and play easier, or because the spring reminds her of her father. Danny loved springtime the best. He and Willow would always comment on how everything comes to life after months of a dark depression that seems void. Clicking my tongue as I help Ainsley finish drying off from her much-needed bath, I run a brush through her damp hair and note how long it's gotten. When she meets my eyes in the mirror in front of us, I realize even more how much she looks like Danny. There are bits of her mother mixed into her soft features, but my late best friend is who stares back at me. Emotion clogging my throat, I clear it and kiss her cheek once her hair is smoothed out. I left clothes on the counter for you. Get changed, okay? We'll go downstairs and make dinner. She hurries and meets me outside the room, holding my hand all the way downstairs. I wonder what's going through her mind today. Ever since we got home from the rec center after our class, she's latched onto me. I don't mind it one bit. Seeing her play outside and smile with bright eyes in the sunlight makes me happier than I've been in a while. But I also know that she shares more than just her father's looks. Like him, she prefers being on her own, unless there's something on her mind. When I start a pot of boiling water, I turn to face her, signing, "Is everything okay?" She stares at my hands for a moment, her bottom lip drawing into her mouth. A sure sign something's up. But she eventually nods like all is well. "You can talk to me, Ainsley." Her eyes go to the floor. I kneel, tapping her chin until she meets my eyes with those beautiful brown ones I love so much. Instead of signing, I just hold her hand and smile. Her hands twitch like she's itching to sign, but they remain at her sides. I say, "I love you, Nugget. Whatever is on your mind, you can tell me if you want. I won't force you either way. Just know I'm here." Pecking her forehead, I stand up and turn back to the water on the stove that's just beginning to bubble on the bottom. A small hand wraps around mine and tugs, causing my attention to look downward at the trembling lip on Ainsley's face. She signs 3 words that assault my heart. "I miss Daddy." My arms are instantly around her, hers clinging to my neck. I pick her up until her legs wrap around my waist. Flicking off the burner on the stovetop, I walk us into the living room, the same time the front door opens. Easton enters with paper grocery bags nestled into his arms and looks between us with concern etched into his face as he kicks the door closed. I just shake my head at him. He presses his lips together and nods once, disappearing into the kitchen. I sit on the couch with Ainsley hugging the life out of me, and I absorb the pain and hurt in any way I can. I pepper kisses on her forehead, brush my fingers through her hair, and let her cry. Sometimes we need that, to be held while our feelings show. For a long time after the accident, I let the tears aid me to sleep at night, while I thought about Danny, about the past, about how unfair life is. I used to think I was weak for letting myself feel too much, crying into my pillow to soak up the desperate sounds until my body forced itself to shut down. Listening to Ainsley, this beautiful little girl, I realized it's not weakness at all. We just chose to be strong for too long until our hearts needed a break. I miss him too, baby girl. My words were breathed into the top of her head, the smell of her lavender shampoo wafting around me. Your father was such a wonderful man, and the best dad to you. He loved you so, so much. So did your mother. She tightens her hold, burying her face into my now damp shirt. You know, I remember the day your daddy told me they were expecting you. The light in his eyes was one I'd never seen before. He loved you from the second he knew about you. And that day, I'd felt something deep inside of me that I was ashamed of. I felt anger. I felt envy. I felt a mix of horrible things that faded with time as I watched them prepare for Ainsley. Every update he told me, every image he showed me, the nursery they'd built from scratch. The love he had for his daughter and wife couldn't be beat, and I'd known it. It had chipped at those ill feelings and turned them into different ones, lighter ones. While I still held onto jealousy that ate at my conscience, it was only because I couldn't feel the same thing that I'd witnessed them experience. Love. Unconditional, honest love. I just miss him so much, too, I finish in a whisper that breaks. I squeeze my eyes shut for a moment to stop a tear from sliding out. Once I've collected myself, I take a deep breath and open my eyes. From the corner of my gaze, I see Easton leaning against the archway, staring at us. He heard the entire thing. He sees my heart break. What else does he see? When he realizes I've caught him looking, he pushes himself off the wall.
Want me to make dinner?
I glance at Ainsley, then back at him. I started to boil water. I was going to make some sort of pasta.
Spaghetti?
Sure.
I have stuff to make mac and cheese.
That gets Ainsley's attention. She peels herself away from me, eyes red and cheeks flushed, and blinks between me and Easton. I manage to smile. I think macaroni and cheese is exactly what we need tonight.
Do you need any help?
He shakes his head and hesitates, like he wants to say something. His eyes go to Ainsley, his brows furrowing in the slightest way, but then he nods to himself and heads back into the kitchen. I listen to him moving around, clattering pans and opening the refrigerator, all while Ainsley settles back into me. I tell her about Danny and her mom, how they met and fell in love the same day. Danny was shy. Willow was not. The couple was one anybody would envy when they went out and showed how genuine their kind of love was. And it makes me feel like scum. But I've long since accepted that I'm human. A human with feelings. Feelings that went unrequited for as long as I could remember. But the bitterness that was there before no longer resonates. It doesn't burn me or choke me at night when I sleep. There are no haunting thoughts that plague my conscience when my mind stops being distracted by everyday tasks. I blow out a deep breath. God, I'd always loved Daniel McCrae. But for once, I don't think I'm in love with him. The thought alone lifts a 1-ton weight off my chest and allows me to breathe easier. I snuggle into Ainsley until sometime later when Easton hand-delivers us bowls with our steaming dinner filling them. When I smile at him, he stares at me with curious eyes. I'm telling him thank you in silence, but my mind clings to something else. Something deeper. Maybe I'm thanking him for more. That night, there's a knock at my bedroom door. It's a foreign sound at this point, but I quietly tell the person responsible to come in, knowing who it is. When East enters, one hand is shoved in the pocket of his jeans, and the other is holding onto the edge of the door.
Mind if I come in?
The soft words aren't lost on me as he stays near the door, like I'll tell him no. Sure. He steps further inside and quietly closes the door behind him, lingering near it.
I come as a friend.
My bedside lamp is on because I'm doing last-minute homework, so I can see the genuine half-smile he shoots me.
Is that what we are?
One of his shoulders lifts.
I think so.
Good, I smile.
What's up?
He clears his throat, waiting for a moment before answering.
I wanted to make sure you were okay. You know, from earlier. I could see it in your eyes when you told Ainsley about her dad. You were upset.
I blink at him, quickly looking down at the papers scattered in front of my crossed legs. I wasn't expecting him to notice, much less ask me that. But am I really surprised? He was my best friend, and I've always felt his loss in such a deep way that I refused to think about it for too long. I never talked about him much if I could help it.
You loved him.
It's not a question. In some ways. I pick up a paper and stare absently at it. There are so many forms of love, and I only ever focused on the one I thought mattered most. I never thought about what other kinds he offered me. I didn't think they were enough.
And now?
Now it doesn't matter. Now, clicking my tongue, I drop the paper and look at him. I realized very recently that I don't want to hold on to what I thought I felt then. It hurts too much. He studies me, but doesn't speak. Having you in my life has been unexpectedly great, I admit sheepishly. I don't mean that as a come-on or anything. For me, I didn't really let anyone in, because I didn't want many people to know how messed up my head was for pining over a man who clearly didn't want me. But I'm learning to let that shame go. His eyes don't wander from me as I deliver that quiet statement. I feel his gaze on my skin, burning, tingling. I'm hyper-aware that he's giving me his full attention, and I'm not used to it. With him or anyone.
Can I ask you something?
I shrug.
Go for it. You mentioned a guy from your past that you and Danny grew up with. Is that the same one you went out to dinner with?
Lips parted, I stare at him with wrinkled brows. Easton has always been intuitive. In many ways, he's the fly on the wall who observes everything and silently puts the pieces together. In fact, I forgot I even mentioned Carter before the dinner fiasco that put a wedge between East and me.
Yeah, it is.
His face twists for a microsecond. If I blinked, I would have missed it. He gives me a terse nod, and that's it.
What?
He shakes his head. East? I unfold my legs and swing them over the side of the bed. Come on, tell me. I can tell you're thinking something. Friends share. His eyes heat, darkening as if he takes that in an entirely different way.
Oh, trust me. I know that well now.
My face turns red. That isn't what I meant, and you know it, I grumble. Shaking it off, I give him a pleading look. Please. Sighing, he scrubs a hand down his face and clasps it around his neck.
Just be careful. I think it's good you have somebody to talk to about the shit you went through. But sometimes we latch onto the wrong things.
The wrong? What do you mean?
Nothing.
He reaches for the door.
I just don't want to see you get hurt.
Carter would never hurt me, I tell him confidently. His jaw ticks.
Okay.
When he leaves after saying goodnight, I wonder what the look on his face was. It was distant, but not cold. It's like he knew something I didn't. Worried about something I hadn't thought of. It makes me wonder if he was talking about Carter or something else. Chapter 23. Agreeing to willingly go out with Carter seemed like a good idea until he pulled into my driveway. With my parents watching Ainsley and Easton at work, it left me in an empty house overthinking about every little detail. Jenna was working overtime at the boutique, and I didn't want to bother her with my unnecessary freakout when I realized what I'd gotten myself into. The clamminess of my hands never eases as he drives us to a diner he chose 30 minutes away. It's a decent drive. The windows are down because of the warmer weather and bright sun gracing the blue sky, and the early 2000s rock music plays on low to fill his vehicle when our conversation lulls. And it lulls because of me.
You look lost in thought.
he says quietly, glancing at me for a moment before returning his eyes to the road. When he asked me again a few days ago if I wanted to have an early dinner with him at his favorite place, I had contemplated saying no. But the way his warm eyes watched me made something in my chest shift. I couldn't find an excuse not to. Ainsley was already being watched by my parents because they decided they wanted to take her to a movie and give me time to myself. I'd planned on doing homework and cooking the kind of food I know she hates because she's not there to complain. I'm just thinking about school. The lie slips off my tongue as I stare out the window. I don't have that much longer to go. He doesn't call me out on it if he expects as much.
Are you excited?
I go to answer but stop myself. Am I? I've always enjoyed school. I like the routine, the schedule to abide by. It makes having to make decisions easier. Sort of, I settle with. I think I'm going to enjoy not having to stay up late to get homework done. But everything that comes after graduating, it scares me.
It's scary, he agrees, but I have no doubt in my mind you'll be just fine. Look how well you're doing right now.
Snorting wouldn't be attractive, but it's what I want to do. Most days, I barely hold on by a thread. I'm surviving on the extra money from my student loans and the money that Danny left to pay some of my rent. My paychecks from tutoring help me pay some of the smaller bills or groceries, but never both. Substituting made me enough to not have to dip into Danny's money. It doesn't feel like it most days.
Trust me, Piper, that's normal.
My head turns to him.
You trying to tell me that you don't have it together? I'm not sure I buy that, Professor Ford.
His chuckle surprises me.
Just because I have a decent job doesn't mean there aren't aspects of my life that aren't askew. Everybody has moments that challenge them. It's part of life, especially for those just starting out.
Why does that bother me so much? He says it like I'm so young, fresh to the real world. But what he doesn't know about are all the hard times I've had. How much I've had to work my ass off to make ends meet. I always manage, but barely. My parents would notice my weight loss and conveniently have pre-made food for me and Ainsley, or slip $20 into my purse. They knew I wasn't eating because I had to make sure Ainsley was. I know, I reply distantly. It's a few minutes before he speaks up again, his voice softer than before.
My dad asks me when I'm finally going to settle down. He was upset with me for not marrying Elizabeth, but I know he's also glad I didn't once I explained she wasn't it. He loved Mom. He understood not wanting to marry somebody I didn't love.
Not sure what to say, I press my lips together and shift slightly toward him to see his eased facial expression as he continues to talk.
I got a dog because the house I own is empty and cold. I needed to fill it with more than just furniture. You know, I thought once I checked things off a list, I'd feel complete. Graduate, get a good job, do what I love, buy a house. But none of that was enough for me. I have no social life because I bury myself with work, and the only time I usually get out is to walk Cap.
Again, I say nothing.
We all have our things, he concludes, giving me a pointed look. Nobody has it all together. Believe me.
Biting down on the inside of my cheek, I count to 3 before saying anything. I use Ainsley as an excuse a lot of times. It annoys my best friend. I think my parents pity me, and Jesse doesn't talk to me enough for me to know what he must think. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choices in life. Like if I'd done something differently, I'd be somewhere else. But I'm not sure I'd want to be.
What would you have done differently?
I shrug. Anything. Like gone to a different college or gone out more. Dated. Made other friends. There are so many things I could have done, and I'm pretty sure it would have impacted where I am now. But despite all the times I struggle, I don't think I'd change it even if I could. I mean, I have the smartest, sweetest, kindest little girl. I'm lucky. He smiles.
I'm glad.
I nod. Me too. The rest of the drive is peacefully quiet as we listen to tunes. He sings along to himself, and I smile as I look out the window and listen to him. He's different, less guarded, when he's not on campus. There's always something holding him back when we're there. A barrier. His job. My position. It isn't until we're seated in a booth in the cute log cabin-like establishment with our drink and food order in that I look at him with curiosity.
Doesn't this feel wrong to you?
His eyes widen a fraction.
Wrong?
I can see it in the way you compose yourself now compared to on campus. I lean back, playing with my straw wrapper to busy my hands. Your walls are up. You're cautious there. Like if somebody sees us talking, it'll be bad. But it still doesn't stop you from being there for me. It just made me wonder what you thought about it. You know, who we are to each other.
We're friends. Old friends.
I shake my head, brushing hair behind my ear and choosing my words carefully. You're my brother's friend. You were Danny's. I was the tag-along who you guys never wanted around.
That's not true.
I give him a knowing look.
That's not entirely true,
he amends apologetically.
I don't think this is wrong, Piper. Do I think it's fine? That we're not potentially crossing some lines we shouldn't? No. Part of me has to be cautious because of the delicate situation. But it doesn't feel wrong.
His honesty is appreciated.
You're going to graduate soon. If this is something you want to continue pursuing, if you decide to give me a shot, then we'll discuss it when the time comes.
He leans forward, his forearms resting on the edge of the table.
But that doesn't have to be a decision we make now, tomorrow, or next week. We'll do what we always do. Go to school, work, be part of the environment we're placed in, and see where it takes us. Sound good?
I blink. I'm not used to guys being so forward. He isn't pushing anything on me, not even expectations. In fact, he doesn't seem to hold on to anything that would indicate this could work.
Do you think it'll work out for us? I know that I like you,
he answers without a moment's hesitation.
I admire you and your strength. You love with everything inside of you and are willing to sacrifice yourself for Ainsley. Anybody would be stupid not to want to make things work.
His words make me think of Easton, which makes the water I sip hard to swallow. Guilt rises in my chest and seeps into my conscience, but I keep brushing it away.
What is it?
He asks. Shaking my head, I keep a hold of the water glass. The condensation pools on my hand as my grip loosens. I was just thinking about something. Somebody.
Danny?
I don't answer. He nods once.
Not Danny.
There's no sadness in his tone, no accusation. He just states what he knows.
Want to talk about it?
The last thing I want to talk to Carter about is my prior sleeping arrangements with my roommate. Not really. I just had something with somebody for a while, and it ended.
Exes can be tough to let go of,
is his response. I'm not sure how to take it. I'm glad he's not upset that I brought it up or even had the thought. But shouldn't he be? My cheeks heat. I'm not sure I can consider him an ex, but you're right. Anyway, I was just thinking about how I never really dated. This is sort of it for me, which is embarrassing. I don't have much of a social life either.
Do you regret that at all?
No. I rub my lips together. It'd make things like this easier, knowing what to expect. Then I wouldn't feel like I'm about to say or do the wrong thing. There's a lot I could mess up here, and I'm just worried you'll... That causes his brows to furrow.
You're worried that I'll what?
I look at the table. You're older than me with more life experience. You have a great job and a house and, I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking about all the stuff I've done and what I'll have to do, and wonder if that'll be enough.
You're too hard on yourself.
Maybe, maybe not. Why me? You said it's because you admire me, but I'm nothing special. In fact, I'm a mess like most of the human population. He studies me for a long moment, making it hard to keep eye contact. I want to break it and look anywhere but those brown eyes, but I don't. I can't.
You have a story to tell, one I want to hear. I just want to get to know you, Piper. It doesn't have to be anything more than that, and the reasons I mentioned before.
It just seems like it's not enough. Why does anybody choose to pursue other people? Attraction, common interests? Carter and I both love history and teaching it. We have a past, similar friends, mutual acquaintances. I think about Danny and try remembering all the reasons I clung on to him. He was kind. He made me smile. He got me to laugh when I wanted to cry or hit something if I was in a bad mood. He always knew how to fix it and make me feel better. I liked Danny because he was a good person. So, maybe it wasn't that complicated. I'm not a bad person. I deserve this. We're laughing so hard my sides hurt. but it doesn't stop us from cracking more jokes at my brother's expense. I'm pretty sure Jesse would be pissed if he knew Carter was divulging some of his past failures with women. I, however, am living for it.
Then she dumped her drink on him and walked out with all her friends.
His eyes are as watery as mine. I swipe away a tear and reach for my water, taking a sip to calm down. I can't believe he had that many fails with women, I muse, shaking my head. He always used to brag about what a ladies' man he was, you know? I'm glad some women were smart enough not to fall for it. Carter's shoulders shake with laughter.
I used to be amazed at how hard he tried. Do you know about the day he met his wife?
I shake my head, enthralled by where this could go. He sets his own glass down.
We were at a pool hall catching up. It had been a while since we'd hung out, so he reached out asking if I wanted to play a game and grab some drinks. Ren worked as a bartender, and I swear, Piper, as soon as your brother saw her, that was it. His eyes stayed on her all night, even when he pretended that he wasn't interested. I kept telling him to go talk to her, gave him money to buy us more beer, anything to get the guy to say something instead of staring like a creep. He went up after cursing me out and waited to get her attention. I wondered if he was going to give her some cheesy-ass pickup line or do something else. You know what he did? He passed her the money, ordered another pitcher of beer, and brought the drinks back to where we were sitting. That's it.
I blink. How anticlimactic. Are you saying he did absolutely nothing? He nods once.
Not a damn thing. That's when I knew he was a goner. He loved women.
I make a face at that.
Sorry, but it's true. When he didn't make a move to try getting her number, I knew there was more to it. We didn't drink much that night, but any time we ordered something, he'd go up and get it. They'd have a quick exchange, watch each other, but do nothing else. Their eyes, though, that was where you could see it.
See what? I'm enamored by this side of my brother I didn't know. Granted, there weren't many sides of him I knew well. But the soft one, the one in love,
they were both gone.
I swear my heart swooned over that. And knowing Carter and his genuine nature, I know he isn't playing up a story to get me all doe-eyed. If he says it happened like that, it happened.
We went back to that same place so many times, and I'd have to watch the same thing. A whole lot of nothing. Then one day he was getting flustered when a guy was hitting on her, and he got up to leave. Ren called after him, stopping him before he could go. She asked where he was going and said he couldn't leave.
I blink. What? Why? His lips lift slightly.
I believe her exact words were, "You haven't asked me out yet, asshole. Do it before somebody else does."
His head shakes with an amused laugh. That sounds like Ren, I confirm.
Yep.
Wow. I didn't realize how much I'd love that story. It's not what I'd expected to hear, knowing the player Jesse used to be. Yet it gives me hope that anything can happen. Why would I need that reassurance when I'm on a date with a great guy? A guy I used to crush on. I've dreamt of having this kind of one-on-one time with him before. Now, it just feels natural, normal, like there's nothing surreal about us coming full circle or reacquainting. It's nuts to me. If I hadn't moved, we wouldn't have seen each other again, I murmur, almost to myself in realization. My eyes pivot to his. That's sort of weird to think about.
I'm sure we would have crossed paths eventually. I know Jesse, your family,
he points out evenly. Do you really believe that? In all these years, we haven't crossed paths once. I'd hear about him occasionally from somebody, but it was rare. And in all honesty, I tended to tune out the conversation if the topic drifted in his direction. I was bitter.
I believe things happen when they're meant to, yes. Maybe we wouldn't have crossed paths right away, but eventually.
He says it so calmly, so sure, that I can do nothing but study him. His eyes are light, content, and his almost empty glass in front of him has his loose hand wrapped around it without tension. He really does mean that.
Huh,
is all I can muster.
Think about it, he says. We all do things that lead us to one point or another. I had job offers at a few other colleges. One out of state I considered taking because of the pay. But I chose Linwood. I live here. You made decisions that led you to Aberdeen, and I think that means something.
I want to tell him that it means I couldn't find a cheaper place, but I refrain. I never took you as a fate kind of guy, Carter. His lips quirk up.
I guess I need to do better at opening up, so you get to know me then. How about we go somewhere else? Talk.
Aren't we talking now?
Want to see where Jessie and Wren met?
My chest tingles over the idea, and it's hard not to smile as soon as the offer is out in the open. Of course I want to see where they met. After that story, how can I not? Isn't it too early to drink? It's not even 4 o'clock yet.
But it's not too early for pool.
I lick my lips. Okay. I realize after following him out of the restaurant once he pays that I like this. Getting out, talking to Carter, having a life. I can picture doing it more often. Smiling, laughing, feeling lighter than normal. When Carter looks at me, it's like he knows what I'm thinking. He reaches over and holds my hand, folding our fingers together the whole way to our next destination. My smile grows bigger. Chapter 24. Mom helps me set the table that we never typically use while I pull the vegetable lasagna out of the oven. Ainsley is in the living room with Dad playing Barbies together. She always gets people wrapped around her finger, but him especially. That smells good. Mom comes up beside me, examining the bubbling cheese. It looks like it's done. Did you make something different for your father? You know how he is. Rolling my eyes, I point toward another dish on the top rack of the oven. I made macaroni and cheese with hamburger in it. Ainsley likes that too, thanks to him. Scrunching my nose over the combination, I check their food. Don't get me started on her ketchup obsession. I'm pretty sure I have Jessie to blame for that. Jessie and Ainsley haven't had many interactions. The first time they met, she was young. I used to think too young to remember anything about him. But Danny, Ainsley, Jessie, and me had gone out for breakfast one day, just before she'd turned 3. And Jessie put ketchup over the scrambled eggs he ordered. He puts the stuff on everything, just like her. That morning, she'd asked him for some, and the look on her face when she puckered from the sweet taste didn't stop her from eating half of what was on his plate. She's been obsessed since. Mom smiles at that. He should be here soon. Wren had to work, but I know he's looking forward to seeing you. Somehow I doubt that. That's a shame Wren won't be here. Jessie texted me this morning asking if he should bring anything. He said nothing about Wren. When was the last time I saw her? I'm not even sure. I think about what Carter told me a while ago. Are Jessie and Wren still trying to have kids? Have they been fighting? Wren seems to work every time I try making plans, and I've never taken it personally until now. Maybe she doesn't want to be around me and Ainsley. When is your roommate coming home? I push the thought away and turn to my mother. She's patiently waiting for an answer, seemingly not knowing the thought that crossed my mind before then. Soon, he was just out running errands with his friend. There's a knock at the door. Knowing it wouldn't be Easton, I head out and smile at Ainsley and Dad on the couch. Dad's holding a teddy bear in one hand and a doll in the other, seemingly letting them converse. Shaking my head, I open the door and find my brother staring back at me with wine in his hand. I told you not to bring anything, I tell him, accepting the bottle he holds out. It would go well with the dish I made. Maybe not the macaroni and cheese, but it's not like Dad is a wine drinker anyway. Stepping aside, he passes me and greets Dad and Ainsley. So Wren couldn't make it? Jessie pulls off his sweatshirt and drapes it across the armchair. Yeah, her parents are in town, so she wanted to see them. It comes off his tongue so easily, I can't help but blink in confusion at him. I notice Mom from the corner of my eye, her expression sympathetic toward me. The lie is out there for me to dissect, but I choose not to call either of them out on it. Instead, it simmers silently while we proceed with the greetings. Ainsley reaches out and high-fives Jessie when he offers her his palm. He and Dad catch up for a bit while I walk into the kitchen and check on the last dish. Mom doesn't say anything. I don't either. With perfect timing, the front door opens with rattling keys. Talking pauses for a moment from the boys before they greet Easton. My family has met my roommate a few times. They all like him. Jessie and him always find things to talk about. Mom ogles him, and Dad is usually too busy fussing with Ainsley to pay him much attention. About 15 minutes later, we're all surrounding the table together with steaming food in front of us. Easton watches Dad fill Ainsley's plate, then notes the eagerness of Ainsley when she grabs the ketchup placed next to her and covers her plate with it. I press my lips together when he glances between her and me. Not really disgusted by the addition to her food, but not impressed either. Jessie, sitting next to Ainsley, nudges her arm with a smile.
Want more macaroni with your ketchup, kid?
Her eyes brighten when he talks to her, and I suppress a giggle. She's crushing on him. That much is obvious. When he takes the ketchup from her and caps the lid, he winks and takes a forkful of food from her plate, causing her smile to widen at him. Easton chuckles to himself, pulling my gaze between Ainsley and my brother to him. He notices where Ainsley's attention is, too, as she stays saddled to Jessie's side. I know the age is full of innocent crushes. I held quite a few with random people then, too, and it only grew as I got older. When my roommate sees my plate still empty, he reaches for the veggie lasagna and grabs my plate to fill it. Thanks. Mom watches us as I accept the plate, her eyes twinkling as she smiles to herself. I'm not sure what she's thinking, so I just focus on eating while everybody else talks about random things. Jobs, weather, life. Jessie says,
Carter mentioned you're almost done with your semester. Said you're doing well with teaching his class.
For some reason, heat creeps up into my cheeks as I nod. I know everyone is watching. Well, everybody but Ainsley. She's poking macaroni with her fork and eating happily while people wait for my response. It's been great teaching the course. I'm lucky he was there to help me when things didn't work out at my last placement. Easton's gaze especially burns from his close proximity, but I brush it off. It's Mom who decides to speak. He's always been a good man. I wondered what he's been up to since he moved. I still see his father mowing the yard once in a while. He always says hi. Nice people. I nod in agreement, not saying anything. Dad picks at his plate.
He should stop by the house when he's in town. Don't know if he visits his father or not, but I hear they talk occasionally.
I'm sure he'd like that, is all I offer. He told me not long ago he speaks to his father on the phone at least twice a month. Sometimes they'll go out to eat, but I don't know if he goes back to his childhood home. Jessie leans back.
Considering teaching at college like him? I can picture it. Carter always wanted to be a professor. Talked about it ever since we were younger. But you'd make a good one too, Pipe.
My brows raise. He thinks so? Thanks, Jessie. I'm not sure what I'll do, just that I'll teach. Going on to get my PhD didn't seem logical. I loved being in front of Carter's class, but I also loved being in front of the high school one, too. Plus, that's more debt on my shoulders for after I graduate.
He could help you,
my brother replies casually. I wet my lips when I see the way East's jaw ticks. He doesn't say a word, but I know he's connected the dots. I've mentioned Carter's name before in passing conversation. I've been on more dates with Carter, and East has asked about them out of consideration. There's distance, though. The last time he asked, he didn't really want to know. Jessie doesn't know about Carter and me, I can tell. I would have heard about it by now. Gotten the stares, asked the questions. My family wouldn't just sit here without grilling me about the guy they all knew I had a thing for. He's offered to help me figure things out since he knows the process. Not wanting to dwell on the topic, I turn to Ainsley. How's dinner, Nugget? She smiles and signs. Good. I tweak her nose and watch her go back to her food while my parents talk about Carter's father. I participate once in a while whenever they ask something about school or graduation. I'm not attending the ceremony, which even Easton seems surprised by. Mom tells me I need to since I skipped my undergrad graduation too, but I don't want to bother. What I want is to go out to eat with people I care about. Maybe plan a trip somewhere for a day or two. I want to enjoy my life and do it in ways that don't hold me back. No barriers, no guilt. I look at Ainsley and picture us in a car with the windows down and the radio up. I see her talking, laughing. It makes my smile falter for a moment.
Piper?
It's Easton who speaks. I blink a few times before turning to him, lips twitching downward. He studies me, brows furrowed as he looks over my expression. What does he see? I'm not sure I want to know. He quietly asks, You good? Once again, Mom stares at me from across the table. I feel her gaze on me, and I don't analyze it. There have been plenty of times in the past when she's asked about guys. She told me to date, to put myself out there when Danny did. I never listened, never told her I did. Sometimes I wonder if she was upset that I never tried harder. But I'm trying now. I'm good, I assure him. I don't think he buys it, but I can't tell. We stay up and talk some nights, catching up on our days. He brought Jay over one time for dinner, but Ainsley didn't take well to him, even though he was no harm to her. She hid behind me or Easton, and Jay always stared at the three of us like he was amused by what he saw. Easton and I are friends. We're roommates. We're—
"What did you say, Piper?"
Dad asks. I shift my weight in my chair. "Sorry, what did you say?" Jesse rolls his eyes.
"He asked if you'd be interested in us all going out. I'm sure Ren would love going to the Grove."
Would she, though? My eyes must reflect my doubt, because he doesn't keep eye contact with me. I know then his wife is upset. Maybe not with me, but the situation. I'm not angry over it. I'm not guilty over her pain. But I do feel bad. Easton's arm brushes mine. In comfort, I realize. "Sure," I answer softly. "I'd like that." I'm sitting on the kitchen counter with a bowl of ice cream when Easton walks into the kitchen in his usual black sweatpants. Shirtless with wet hair like he just took a shower, he walks over to the fridge and grabs a bottle of water. He leans his back on the doors of it, seemingly not caring about the various magnets and clips that hold drawings and bills up.
"Chocolate chip cookie dough?"
he guesses, examining the bowl. It's my usual choice, though sometimes I'll sneak a pint of the peanut butter kind that he loves. I nod, spooning some of it out. Felt like an ice cream kind of night. My family left hours ago after making plans for a celebratory graduation dinner in the coming months. I'd gotten Ainsley ready for bed and watched a few episodes of some random cartoon with her before tucking her in and sneaking down here. He pushes off the fridge and grabs a spoon from the drainer, walking over and dipping it into my bowl.
"Stress eating?"
Rubbing my lips together, I shrug. I don't know. I haven't been that stressed lately. Things have been good. But seeing Jesse and hearing them cover up why his wife wasn't here was hard. He quirks a brow.
"Why do you think she wasn't here?"
I pause, looking down at the ice cream I'm swirling into soup. I think it has to do with Ainsley. They love her, but I found out from somebody that they're trying to have kids. It's not working. His lips twitch.
"Somebody close to the family?"
He surmises in a murmured response. He pulls the spoon away and tosses it into the sink like it's tainted somehow. Eye twitching, I put the bowl down beside me on the counter. "Yeah, it was Carter. They're still friends."
"Friends with your brother?"
He huffs out an unamused laugh.
"And your teacher? Funny, I don't remember you mentioning that part."
"It didn't matter." Now he deadpans.
"Don't bullshit me."
My lips part. "Look, I've known Carter for a long time. He's a good man."
"You hated him when you brought him up over the winter,"
he points out doubtfully. This conversation is going nowhere. I said that I did, but I didn't. I've never truly hated anybody in my life. Nobody but myself. If you were in my shoes, you'd feel the same. He mumbles,
"Doubtful,"
under his breath before uncapping his water and taking a swig. He wipes off a droplet from his bottom lip and levels with me.
"Does your family know you're sleeping with him?"
Did he just— What the hell, Easton? Eyes widening over the blunt question, I stare at his distant expression. You have no right asking me that question.
"Isn't that what friends do?"
"Pry?" I snap.
"Show concern,"
he retorts. His dry demeanor throws me for a loop. Where's the guy who stayed up late with me or worried about Ainsley when she's sick? It's not the one glowering in front of me.
"I think whatever you've got going on with him isn't worth the risk considering his position."
My jaw ticks as I slide off the counter. It isn't like he's using his power over me. We've known each other—
Yeah, for a long time."
He grips the bottle in his hand until it crinkles.
"How old is this guy?"
Why do you care?
"Because, whether you believe it or not, I am your friend. I do care. I'm starting to think a little too fucking much."
What's that supposed to mean?
"It means—"
His jaw ticks before he shakes his head.
"I'm going out. Fuck this. Just be careful, Piper. Guess that's all I'm saying."
I glance at the time. Where are you going? That's really all you're going to say to me right now? He turns, throwing his hands up.
"What more is there to say? You're with your professor acting like your screwed-up past makes everything okay with him. He's a shoulder to cry on."
Hurt laces through my veins. He knows enough about my past to know he shouldn't have said that. Just like I shouldn't have said, "And you were just a dick to ride when shit got too tough to handle." His eyes narrow as he backs out.
"At least I'm not your professor."
Scoffing, I grab my bowl. "Fuck you, Easton. Just fuck you."
he calls out. Been there, done that. Kind of glad I don't have to experience that kind of crazy anymore, sweetheart.
My heart breaks a little as I listen to him go upstairs and close his door. I remain in the kitchen, eyeing my cell phone, itching to call Carter, knowing his number is in my contacts now. He insisted I could reach out to him whenever I needed. Did I need him now? I want to call him, to tell him to come over. But I can't. I think of Ainsley sleeping upstairs and my roommate who's loudly sifting through his dresser drawers, and close my eyes when I listen to him walk down the stairs and slam the front door closed behind him. I don't need Carter. I don't need Easton. I just need peace. Rinsing my bowl out in the sink, I grab my cell and power it off for the night while I think about East's harsh words. They penetrate my chest in ways I can't ignore. If he says he cares and means it, he shouldn't have walked out. I refuse to even wonder if he's right. Chapter 25. There's a comfortable silence in Carter's office as we grade papers across from each other. The stack is almost finished, which means we're close to being done for the night. As soon as the final paper is marked and set off to the side, we shift roles. It's always a silent transition, but one that seems easy to make. Tonight is different, though. I picked up soup and sandwiches from my favorite cafe on campus and brought them for dinner. We ate with basic conversation about our days, about homework, about the class we co-teach. He tells me about the following week when my advisor will be observing me, taking charge of the classroom. I'll be recorded, assessed, and updated on my progress, leading up to the final stretch of my degree.
You're quiet,
he notes softly, pushing the paper away from him. I lift my eyes from my own paper to meet his.
You okay?
Ever since my fight with Easton the other night, my mind has wrapped around everything he said. I look at Carter and think about my roommate's theory. I got into an argument with my roommate. I'm just thinking about the stuff we both said. Carter leans forward.
Want to talk about it? You know I'm here to listen, and you have my number if you need it.
I've had his number for weeks, and not once have I used it. Not because I didn't want to, but because I told myself it'd cross a line. Talking to Carter on campus, making plans with him face-to-face seems harmless, innocent. Calling him after dark, desperate for somebody to hear me when I'm at my lowest, means something entirely different. Playing with the red pen in my hand, I lean back and rub my lips together. Do you think this is happening between us because of Danny? Both his brows raise in surprise.
What?
I fidget with the sleeve of my shirt. We've been through this before, I know, but part of me worries that maybe what happened in the past is why we're here. He takes a moment to study me before leaning back in his chair.
Was that part of the argument you had with your roommate?
My lips part, but nothing comes out. He nods once.
I think that the past plays a part of why we are where we are, but I don't think it's the only reason why this has continued.
Shoulders easing slightly, I let his answer sink in. It does make me feel a little better, like the self-doubt lingering can't hurt me anymore over our situation. My roommate knows a little about my past with Danny, my feelings, and he mentioned that I was clinging to the past using you. Maybe not in so many words, but the insinuation was there. He wets his lips.
He, huh?
I swallow. Easton. His lips turn downward. The way his eyes dull tells me he knows what I'm not saying openly. The truth lingers in the atmosphere between us, thickening the air.
I see.
Things with Easton and I are complicated and...
Hey, he cuts me off, smiling. I'm not judging you, Piper. You're a grown woman who can make her own choices. What you've done is none of my business.
My jaw quivers as emotion clings to the inside of my chest, swelling my heart. Thank you, I whisper, voice breaking.
You don't have to thank me.
He reaches out and threads our fingers together.
I think Danny is the reason we're here, but I don't think it's a negative reason.
Like we're supposed to be here? He squeezes my hand.
Why don't you come to my house tomorrow night? I'll cook us dinner. You can meet Cap. Bring Ainsley if you'd like. I want to spend time with you, hear you laugh, listen to anything you want to talk about.
I blink back tears. What if I say the wrong things? What will you think about me then? My mind conjures images of tattooed skin and a brooding smile. I hear the slam of the front door and the look of utter defeat in blue eyes. It makes me frown. I was sleeping with somebody to alleviate the pain, Carter. How could you not think even a little differently of me for that? We're human. His response is that simple, like it really doesn't bother him. You're forgetting that I'm older than you. And you know what? I love that age isn't a barrier between us, but you have to remember that you're not the only one who thought sex was the answer. You too? He just shrugs. Easton means well, I theorize. He doesn't stop me from talking about him, only making my guilt ease that much more until breathing doesn't hurt so much. I think we're friends, but somewhere along the way things got complicated because of... You and me? I go to tell him no, but stop myself. I'm not sure, I admit. And I'm not. I don't think the thoughts going through Easton's head are exactly what's happening between Carter and me. Then again, every time my mind goes to that place, the one full of potential feelings and further complications, I peel myself away from it. From Carter, from Easton. Dinner sounds amazing, is what I eventually tell him, pulling myself from the rabbit hole that my roommate is at the bottom of. He doesn't mention anything about the change of direction, just smiles. Great. I think about Ainsley and tell myself she'll meet him soon. She'll be able to see what a good man he is, how genuine he is, and how well he treats me. But she won't find that out tomorrow. Great, I repeat, forcing a smile. Jenna stays over at my house while I go out. She gave me a pep talk, swatted my butt, and left me with a question I couldn't answer in that moment. Are you going to move forward with your relationship? The way her eyes lit up when I didn't answer her made it seem like she knew the reason why I hadn't. And even as life offers me distractions by means of angry drivers and obnoxious hand gestures on the interstate, my thoughts keep circling around her inquiry. Carter and I have held hands. He's kissed me on the cheek when we're alone. We've hugged for many reasons, because of sadness, for comfort, because we could. I like being wrapped in his arms. That's never been an uncertainty. But our relationship hasn't progressed because of me. The way his eyes flare when we get close tells me he wants something more when our conversations become deeper. About life, our goals, the past. When we connect, I never let it go farther than it has because of the tug in my chest that I can't decipher as good or bad. Sometimes his lips will linger on my cheek, and his breath will hitch when I turn my head, like we're finally going to seal what I've been too scared of. The more I think about it, the more I want to have that connection with Carter for it. I want to know what his lips feel like against mine, and what he tastes like. I want to feel his skin and absorb his warmth, and know what it's like to be held by him skin to skin. I just want to move on instead of holding back, to try. But it's fear that has always beat that want away, like I don't deserve anything more because of what I've done with Danny and Easton. I chased them both away, used them in different ways. I used my best friend to try getting him to love me, and I used my roommate to forget that my best friend never could return my feelings. In the process, I lost myself in a mixture of feelings that are too tangled, too interwoven, to decipher anymore. When I see Easton on the off chance he doesn't avoid me when we're both home, I no longer see Daniel McCrae. I see dark hair and light eyes, and something trapped in his pursed lips and dark demeanor. I see a human like me, broken to some degree and unsure if the pieces will ever fit back together. When I think of Carter, I think of security. I think of our youth. I remember old times when the only thing I ever had to be sad about was when the boys didn't include me in whatever they were doing. How Danny would sneak into my downstairs bedroom, using the side window, and bring me candy to apologize. When I see Carter, I see somebody who knows what he wants and goes after it without hesitation. He's compassionate enough to help me, and caring enough to let me have my time and space to process what we're doing. Two men, two very different situations. In a lot of ways, I care about them both. It took one night of drinking to cross a line with Easton, and part of me wonders if that's why I haven't let Carter and I do more than we have. If he's like any human, he'll want more as we mold our relationship. Kissing, sex. It isn't like I don't want to have sex with him. Every part of me screams that I do. I'm just wary that it'll change everything in ways I can no longer control. Suddenly, Jenna Jenna's question becomes second best to the thought of intimacy with the man I've grown close to. I think about his spicy scent and his gentle hands and his warm eyes as they comfort me with a single look. I know that I would enjoy sleeping with him if my mind would take a step back from overanalyzing it. Just as soon as the thought of us together crosses my mind, heat blossoms between my thighs. I squirm in my seat as my phone chirps that I'm nearing my destination. Gripping the steering wheel, I twist my palms and wonder what Easton would say. Then again, he already thinks I'm sleeping with Carter. Why should I care? Eye twitching, I turn into the driveway of a decent-sized white and brick house. Parking my car in front of the closed garage like he told me, I examine the black shutters and wooden door leading inside. A cement pathway leads from the driveway to the entrance, and green flowering bushes line the front of the house. From here, I can see the outline of a fenced-in backyard and know it's perfect for his dog, probably a reason why he chose it in the first place. It's quaint and exactly what I'd imagined for Carter. My phone buzzes after I unplug it from the charger, a text from my best friend displayed on the screen. Jenna. Stay the night? Smiley face. Blinking, I lick my lips and power off my phone so there's no distractions. I know she has things handled at home. Ainsley will be fine. Easton's been staying out later and later, and all that matters in this moment is that I let myself admit what I want. My face heats. I want Carter Ford. Getting out of my car, I wipe off my clammy palms on the front of my blue jeans and take a deep breath before knocking on his front door. A dog barking in the background has me stepping back as Carter scolds him, opening the door. "Piper," he greets, his usual warm smile gracing his face. Instead of his typical button-down and dress pants, he's in jeans and a t-shirt, casual but sexy. He gestures for me to come in, stepping aside so I can pass him. I see his dog, Cap, standing outside the kitchen, his tail wagging hesitantly. "Cap's a big brute. He acts tough, but he's sweet. You'll see." Carter closes the door and brushes a chaste kiss against my cheek before grabbing a hold of my hand and bringing me into the kitchen. Whatever he's cooking smells delicious, and watching him check the pan positioned in the oven and stir what's in one of the pots on the stovetop has me biting my bottom lip in awe. "It smells good," I compliment quietly. "I'm making lemon chicken pasta." He puts the lid onto the pot and turns to me, asking if I want anything to drink. I just shake my head and notice his dog peeking out from the narrow hall off the kitchen. "She won't bite, Cap. You can come out." I fight a smile as his dog pads over to him, looking at me with a tilted head. Wiggling my fingers over the horse-sized creature and then reaching my hand out to let him sniff me, he takes a few steps forward before his tongue darts out. It doesn't take long before we're buddies, his body not leaving my side as I pet him while Carter continues to cook. "How was the drive over?" he asks. My thoughts still linger from earlier, the back of my neck heating. I fight off the blush that wants to creep into my cheeks and think I managed to do so. "It was fine. Traffic was busy." "Weekend traffic is usually heavier." Our small talk lasts until he's putting our food together, sprinkling garnish on top of the 2 plates of pasta and chicken. My mouth waters at the sight of it, but not as much as when he looks at me and says, "I like you standing in my house." Not expecting those words, I swallow down my surprise. His eyes pierce the dressy buttoned maroon blouse I chose to pair with my looser skinny jeans, traveling down my body like he's memorizing this moment when I'm in his space. Not his classroom, not his office, and not some public restaurant far enough from campus where people can't ask questions, but close enough to home where it doesn't feel like hiding. Being in his house feels intimate. Him cooking me dinner feels domesticated. Everything about the way he takes me in as I stand in his personal bubble jump-starts my heart. We lock eyes when he finally finds his gaze back on my face, and I'm not sure what gets into me. A lot. Nothing at all. I'm conflicted. About life, about love, about them. I walk over to him and place one of my palms over his beating heart, feeling his body heat radiate into my skin from where it rests on his soft cotton shirt. He looks down at me, his eyes heating as I step closer, until he presses a hand into my lower back, pressing us closer together. He says my name quietly as I stand on my tiptoes and brush my lips against his. It's timid, unsure, barely lasting a few seconds before I draw away and watch his reaction. One of his hands cups my cheek, his thumb caressing my bottom lip, as his other hand finds my hip. When he bends down to meet my lips, there's nothing unsure in the way he kisses me. His lips are firm yet soft as they explore mine, deepening the kiss when he angles my head to the side. Teasing the seam of my lips with his tongue, I open for him and relish in the taste of his favorite sweet tea. My arms go around his neck as I nip his bottom lip and thread my fingers into his short hair. He makes a sound that I mirror as the hand on my cheek slowly trails down my side until it rests on my other hip, his fingertips kneading at the denim covering me. I pull him closer, my pelvis arching into his until I feel him harden. He groans and I shiver, goosebumps covering my skin as he kisses me without reserve. Holding me to him, I soak up the feeling. Nobody can catch us, can scold us, can threaten us with punishment for having this moment. I blissfully absorb it all. His hands, his tongue, his lips. It feels like forever before we pull away, his forehead resting on mine, his lips swollen from my teeth. My eyes are closed as I catch my breath, the air mingling with our short pants. I lick my lips before grazing them softly against his again, before he chooses to pull away first. The look in his eyes is full of heat and lust, and I know what he wants. He smiles and brushes the pad of his thumb against my lip.
"What was that for?"
I swallow. I just wanted to. My words must affect him because his eyes flare as he gives me a quick peck that barely lingers, despite his expression darkening, like he wants it to. He steps away and grabs the plates rather than expecting anything more. It's because of that consideration, paired with the way my lips tingle and body heats, that I want it so much more. But we don't rush the dinner he made as we eat at the table and talk about anything we want to. Jesse, my parents, his father. Mr. Ford has always been a kind man, more so after his wife passed away. Despite his loss, he did everything in his power to raise Carter the way he deserved to be raised. He passed on his values and morals, and every single day of his hard work, being a single parent, is one I admire 10 times more now, after hearing the financial struggles they had growing up. His father worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, not that anybody would have known it. He was there for Carter when Carter needed him, going to any function or event for his son. It's clear to see in the way Carter speaks of his father that he loves him. In return, I tell him all about Ainsley and her condition, the struggles of school, the strength I see in her, and how much it hurts to see her cry when she thinks I'm not looking. He already knows my love for her is the strongest love I can ever have, and how much I love Danny for giving me that feeling through the little girl he loved most, too. The more I talk about her, the more tears well in my eyes. We're on the couch with Cap at our feet when I let one of the tears slip past the barrier and stream down my cheek. He holds my hand in his, resting them on what little space is between us on the cushion.
"She's an amazing little girl, isn't she?"
"The best," I whisper, clearing my throat so the raspy tone fades. "She gets it from both of her parents. Willow, did you meet her?" He shakes his head. "Danny told me from the day they met that he knew she was it for him. She came from a rough background and fought for everything she had. I think Ainsley gets a lot of her spirit from her mom." He squeezes our hands.
"Danny was a lot like that, too."
I nod in agreement.
"You don't have to punish yourself like I know you're doing. What happened to him isn't your fault, Piper."
I've told myself that hundreds of times over when I reach a low point, and most of the time I believe it. But like Carter has said before, we're human, and humanity comes with weakness and self-doubt that brings people down the second they're trapped inside their own mind. I stare at our hands. There's a lot you don't know about me. While I wasn't behind the wheel, or the one who created the storm, I was the one who chased him away. He stares in confusion. I thought I loved him. I draw on a breath, finally admitting aloud what nobody knows, not even Jenna. I thought he finally realized he loved me that night. But it was a moment of weakness for him. And as soon as I choke on the words, struggling to catch my breath as more tears fill my eyes. As soon as he realized what we'd done, he couldn't even look at me. He said it was a mistake, Carter. Sympathy instantly clouds his eyes.
Oh, Piper, I didn't know.
Letting go of his hand, I swipe furiously at my cheeks and force myself to breathe. I close my eyes and count to 5, opening them only when I'm calmer. I think about that night all the time, not because I'd slept with him, but because I knew it was a mistake. It hurt when he told me that. It hurt when he stormed out. But nothing hurts more than knowing he was right. And the worst part? I couldn't tell him that. Before I know it, I'm wrapped in his arms. He cradles me, but no tears come out to stain his soft shirt. He just holds me in silence, letting me seek the comfort I need in his warmth. I wrap my arms around him, squeezing my eyes shut, and realizing the weight on my chest is no longer there holding me down. I breathe deeper, easier. When I open my eyes, I pull back and stare at him. His image is clear, his eyes warm and lips neutral. I cup his cheek like he did with me, his stubble rough under my palm. I explore his face, trace the scar on his skin, and feel the slight laugh lines that tells me he's had a good life. I wonder if I'll have those same lines when I'm older, or if it's too late. But the truth is, I've had a good life. He lets me touch him without making his own move. I just wish Danny was still alive to keep enjoying his. His eyes soften.
I know you do, Piper.
I lick my lips and lean forward into his, resting mine against his mouth without moving. Closing my eyes, I feel his breath and get wrapped in the caress of his essence. You're a good man, Carter Ford. Each word brushes our lips together, and I search for the feeling I've had only once before. And it wasn't with Danny. His intake of breath as I trail my hands down the front of his shirt and dip them under gives my confidence a boost. I feel the planes of his firm stomach and trace the lines of his abdominal muscles until I trail them up, 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 along with his shirt. When my hands rest on the wiry hair of his chest, he opens his eyes and looks at me in question.
Are you sure?
I answer him with a kiss, tangling my tongue with his, slowly, and pulling at the article of clothing I want off him. He breaks loose enough to tug it off in one swift pull before kissing me again, drawing my bottom lip into his mouth and sucking. I move my palms up and down his chest before sliding them down to the waistband of his jeans and dipping my finger inside. He curses and pulls away.
You first.
His voice is raspy as he slowly works at the buttons on the blouse I wear until each one is undone. His large palms trace my curves before peeling the material away and leaving me in my cream bra. His eyes take in the lace covering my small breasts before he moves to kiss my jaw, my neck, and collarbone, moving one of the straps out of the way so his mouth can continue over my exposed skin. His other hand fumbles with the hooks at the back until they let loose and the garment falls from my body. He moves my discarded clothes to the living room floor, taking in my bare chest the same way I do his. Prickles of heat nip at the back of my neck as his hands reach out and cup my breasts, weighing them in his hand as he bends down and kisses me again. Our tongues sweep each other's mouths as he plays with my pebbled nipples until I'm moaning and gripping his upper arms. Please, I whisper against his lips. He flicks his tongue in my mouth and lowers down my body, trailing kisses from the valley between my breasts, down my stomach, nipping just below my belly button, before slowly undoing the button and zipper of my jeans. They're not tight, so they come off easily as he pulls them down my thighs, his eyes raising before he dips his fingers into the band of my panties, asking for silent permission to take them off until I'm bare on his couch. I nod. In a matter of seconds, I'm completely exposed. I'm tempted to cover myself with the throw blanket next to me, but I see the way lust burns in his eyes as he runs a hand up my stomach and kisses up one of my thighs. His palm gently pushes me down, so I'm lying on my back as he spreads my legs out in front of him. My head tips as he gets closer to where I ache, his teeth biting the inside of my leg until they stop just before my slit. I want this, Carter. My breathy words are all he needs before his tongue does a first swipe over the length of me, from clit to entrance, and a gasped breath escapes my lips as I mule out when he does it again. My fingers go to the top of his head, tangling in his hair as he spreads me and sucks my clit into his mouth. I curse him, praise him, and feel my insides burn with yearning as his tongue plays with me in every way that my body needs. My thighs open wider for him to adjust his wide shoulders between them as he kneels on the carpet and works me skillfully with his mouth. I hold onto his hair as he licks me with purpose, working my entrance with his tongue until I'm writhing and arching and holding his face where I need him to be. Legs shaking, I dig my fingertips into his scalp and grind into him as his tongue pushes into me. One of his fingers slides toward where his mouth is, playing with the arousal that he's created before entering me slowly as his tongue trails back to my clit. My eyes flutter closed as a second finger enters me, pumping, arching, and building me higher and higher. His movements are slow, calculated, and he doesn't stop until I'm barely able to pant his name in choppy pleas. My hips arch into him, riding out the wave of pleasure coursing through my body as he picks up the pace with his fingers and nips my clit until I can't hold back. Moaning his name, he keeps his fingers arched inside me through my orgasm, waiting until I come down before pulling them out and standing up. He hooks an arm around my waist, puts one behind the back of my legs, and cradles me to him as he takes us through the hallway past his kitchen. I hold onto him, legs numb from the high I'm coming down from, and bury my face into his chest and breathe in his spicy scent while licking and biting his flesh. He carries us to his bedroom, using his foot to close the door behind him so Cap can't come in. I don't take time to look around the large room or note just how soft his dark bedding is under me when he gently lays me down. All I focus on is the way he confidently strips in front of me, not once looking away from our locked gazes. I'm transfixed by his toned torso and his lean waist, his arms perfectly rounded with muscle from the boxing he does at the rec center, his thighs lean and muscular, and his length too impressive to miss as it springs from his tight blue boxer briefs that slide down him until he is naked too. When he crawls up the bed and hovers over my body, I swallow and position my legs so he can fit between them. He's broader than Easton, more toned from all his workouts. The way he towers over me and studies my expression isn't with the same intensity, though, and I'm not sure how to take it. His eyes are dark with lust, but lighter with something else. Care. Genuine care. And I feel as much when he leans down and kisses me, brushing our lips together in tender kisses as he feels down my body and holds me. Sinking lower onto his forearms, his tongue sweeps my bottom lip until we're exploring each other's mouths again, making out and touching and breathing in the other. I flick my tongue against the roof of his mouth. He nibbles my bottom lip, and his cock hardens against my stomach between us. Breath hitching, I hold onto his shoulders and look him in the eyes. Our breathing is ragged, wanting, intermingled with the anticipation. I don't tell him I want this again, not with words. Instead, I squeeze his shoulders and kiss him, molding our lips together and holding him to me so his weight shifts on top of my body. I guide my hand to his rock-hard cock and pump him until he shudders. He places a hand over mine, helping me jerk him until he guides himself at my entrance, pauses, and gives me one final glance before his mouth buries itself in the crook of my neck, at the same time he enters me in one deep stroke. I instantly arch into him, feeling him everywhere. I squeeze my arms around his neck and moan when he slowly pulls out and pushes back in. It's not rushed. It's not hard. It's soft, caring, like he wants it to last. He moves over my body and touches my skin and kisses my lips with the kind of need I want to absorb and feel and think about, even when the moment is over. And that's what this is. A moment. A moment of bliss as his bare cock buries itself inside of me, over and over, and one where my hips meet his every thrust eagerly. We feed off each other, our tongues and limbs tangling and grasping and gasping and playing until the familiar flutter in the pit of my stomach returns. My hands trail down his back, my nails digging in as he shifts his weight and enters me at a deeper angle. I grab his ass and meet his hips, egging him on to push into me harder, deeper, and feel him hit the perfect spot until my eyes roll and black dots fill my vision. He does it again and again, the movement never going as fast as I want, but making my body burn all the same. Sliding one of his arms under me, he lifts my body and thrusts into me, while covering one of my nipples with his mouth and suckling it. My eyes stay closed as I take in the sensation of his cock twitching every time I clench around him, and his breath blowing on the wet breast he plays with. He holds my hand with his free one, trying to keep me close, and breathes my name onto my lips when they meet mine for a scorching kiss, like he's feeding me oxygen. And every time he hits that spot, leaving me moaning, I think about all the other feelings that should squeeze my chest. I feel desire, the yearning of comfort. But there's something lacking that I search for as his cock drives into me. So I hold on tighter to his body and rock into him when his hips thrust forward. I listen to the sound our bodies make and the way our breaths get louder. My pleas become desperate, my mind swarming with thoughts and wishes and hope. Hope that this is enough. Hope that this turns into what I want. Not an escape. Love. I search for that feeling as his thrusts become more demanding, knowing we're both going to come when he slides a hand down my body and plays with my clit. Wrapping my legs around his waist, I grind into him and pant and beg until my body gets what it wants. Not needs, wants. That feeling I search for in our intimacy is lost amidst the sweat and scent of good sex. I lose the way my mind tries latching onto how he holds me, how he moves me into positions that gets me off too. He knows how to work me, how to hold me, and how to kiss me with reason. But even after he pulls out and presses me against his side, peppering kisses against my temple and hair, I know the feeling isn't there, no matter how bad I want it to be. I place a hand on his chest and caress the sweat dotting it, my eyes closing as I listen to his rapid heartbeat beginning to even. His lips stay pressed against the crown of my head, his warm breath soaking into my hair. "You okay?" he asks. I choke down my tears. "Yeah." An hour later, after cleaning up in his bathroom, I make an excuse to go home to my best friend in Ainsley. I just pray my roommate isn't there to see the tears that burn my eyes when I make it. Chapter 26. I wake up the next morning with Jenna and Ainsley both still sleeping beside me in my bed. My face feels puffy from crying against Jenna's shoulder, my chest heavy from things I don't want to think about before 8 in the morning. A brown pair of eyes meets mine, a little hand reaching out and touching my cheek. I smile at her, already feeling better just knowing she's here with me. I cover her hand with mine, sliding her palm to my mouth to press a kiss against it. "I love you," I whisper against her hand, smiling as her tired eyes brighten. "I'm feeling like waffles this morning. What do you say?" From the other side of Ainsley, I hear Jenna grumble. "Too early. Sleep." I bite back my laugh as I let go of Ainsley's hand and kiss her forehead, gesturing for her to get out of bed with me. We walk downstairs hand in hand, my eyes unintentionally lingering to the open landing above us, where Easton's closed door is. I pick Ainsley up and set her on the island counter, giving her a glass of almond milk and grabbing the ingredients we'll need to make breakfast. I already have a few made by the time Jenna strolls down, bedhead, tired eyes, and dried drool gracing the corner of her mouth. I snicker at her less than stellar appearance, forgetting how much she hates mornings. She spends an hour getting ready, so nobody would guess what kind of zombie she resembles first thing. "Morning." "Shut it." I snort and gesture to the full coffee pot I have yet to indulge in. She grabs a mug from the cabinet and pours herself a cup, getting her usual cream from the fridge and dumping in an ungodly amount of sugar. Her sweet tooth is one I could never match, and I always wondered how she stayed so skinny, knowing how much she ate of it. Then again, she also goes to the gym every day, which is something I don't do. "I can feel your judgment," she mumbles, bringing the cup to her lips and standing beside Ainsley. She sets the mug down after taking a sip and ruffles Ainsley's hair until my 6-year-old smiles and bats her hand away. I check the waffle maker before peeling the next one out and setting it onto the plate. "I'm not judging you," I lie. She mutters under her breath and sits down at the counter, pulling out a stool. "I want to talk about last night." Freezing, my eyes go to Ainsley. She's playing with Jenna's phone. "Not right now, okay?" "You were Crying. Ainsley can spell, you know." My bestie sighs. "I just want to know that you're okay. You said you were last night, but then you snotted all over my shirt. I'm pretty sure that doesn't equate to being okay." Swallowing past the lump in my throat, I stare at the machine in front of me as it cooks the batter. I didn't have a bad night. In fact, it was a good night, given the circumstances. "Okay." My shoulders slump ever so slightly as my eyes close. Admitting what I'd done was impossible last night. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't regret it. But as soon as I stepped inside, I couldn't hold back the waging emotions battling inside of me. I started sobbing as soon as Jenna asked how it went. I had sex with Carter. I had good sex with Carter. My professor. My old crush. A family friend. And despite the fact he was gentle and kind and respectful, I couldn't fathom a response to Jenna's question. How'd it go? I felt like Carter Ford was pouring his feelings into me with every kiss, caress, and thrust, but I couldn't do the same. No matter what kiss I returned, touch I matched, or thrust I met, it wasn't enough. I wanted it to be. "I don't think I can love," I whisper, not wanting to say it too loud in fear of who will hear. Ainsley, Easton, myself. "Piper," she says softly. I can hear the pity in her tone, and I brush it off as I peel the waffle from the maker. "That's ridiculous. You can love. You love your family. You love Ainsley. What would make you think you can't?" I keep my back turned to her as I fight with my shaky jaw, grinding down on my teeth to control my emotions. The swell of bitterness rises in my chest, suffocating me slowly until I have to force a breath. Because I didn't feel it last night when I should have. For a moment, there's a pause. "Hey, Ains, mind if I talk to Piper for a minute? You can go buy whatever game you want on my phone and play." I wince at what a bad idea that is. Ainsley once got a hold of my phone a year ago and purchased over $100 worth of games. I had to fight to get them refunded. When little feet make their exit out of the room, phone in hand, I blow out a breath, knowing what's coming. "You slept with him." I simply nod. Her hand finds my arm. "Okay, that's not a bad thing, right? You've always said that Carter has treated you well. Did he—" "No." I already know where she's taking it when I see concern in her eyes. "No, he was great. Really, Jen. But—" I lick my lips and scrub at my eyes, not wanting to cry again. "It was great, and I didn't feel anything. I mean, I felt things, but not what I wanted to feel, you know?" "Babe, you don't have to fall for the guy after having sex with him," she points out, brows raised. "Love takes time. Don't beat yourself up over not being head over heels or exchanging those kinds of words just because the guy was inside you." Heat settles into my cheeks. "It's not that. I know I don't have to say that because of what we did, but he's always been so kind to me. Look what he did for me with my student teaching. He saved me from having to wait another semester to finish my degree." "Do you think you owe him?" My eyes widen. "No, it's—" I realize how bad this is coming out, so I recollect myself and take a deep breath. Counting to 5, I exhale and look at her. I felt things before. Things I didn't feel with him. No spark, no, I don't know, connection. Not a real one, anyway. And I kept searching for one because I knew there had to be something. There just wasn't. "When you say you felt things before," popping my lips, I avoid her brazen stare as she tries wringing an answer out of me. "You know I'm not a virgin. I've had sex before." She smacks my arm. "Piper!" I rub the spot she hit and frown. "Ow! That actually hurt, She-Hulk. I'm getting you food. No need to physically harm me." "Tell me who!" I bite down on the inside of my cheek, counting the waffles on the plate to see if I have enough. Choosing to be safe, I pour the last of the batter in the machine and rinse out the bowl while it cooks. "I really don't think it matters, Jenna." Her hand comes out and stops me from rinsing the ladle in my hand. "Oh my God, it's Easton. She hisses out his name, eyes widening but bright with accusation. I don't confirm it or deny it. It doesn't matter, okay? Stop right there. You had sex with a hottie last night and came home crying. She stares me in the eye. That means that you're hung up on somebody else, so it matters. Be real with me. I'm your best friend. Are you in love with Easton? Are you in... Why does my heart suddenly feel like I've been running? It beats wildly in my throat as I repeat those words. Well, just one of them. Love. Am I in love with Easton? I don't see how I could be, is what I say. Oh my God, she repeats, this time in awe. I'm not sure what she's thinking, but I'm sure it can't be good. You're in love with that sex on a stick. I should have seen this coming. What does that mean? She actually claps her hands like this is the best news she's heard in forever. Piper, I'm going to be level with you, okay? After Danny, I didn't know what would happen to you. You closed yourself off and sunk into this deep pit that I couldn't get you out of. You pretended you were fine because of Ainsley, but the world could see you weren't. And that night when I forced you to get drunk off your ass here was the first time you let your guard down. Some good that did. That was the first night I slept with Easton. Jenna had sobered up hours later and drove herself home. Easton and I kept drinking, kept staring, kept getting closer. Before I knew it, his mouth was on mine and my hands were on his body, and we were naked and in a very compromising position in my bed. We'd had sex 3 times that night, all rushed and rough, but never sloppy. Despite the amount of alcohol I drank, I remember every single detail. You became somebody who was living again because of him, she continues, squeezing my hand that I didn't realize she'd taken into hers. Then when you admitted that you guys were doing the casual sex thing, I could tell it was helping you. You were brighter, happier. It wasn't until a couple months ago that shifted, and I don't know how many times I ignored the signs. Whenever I'd come over, you two would stare at each other when the other person wasn't looking. You'd blush if he accidentally touched you. It was like you were trying to pretend nothing had gone down, even though a lot already had. Piper, think about it. Have you introduced Ainsley and Carter yet? Have you had him over for dinner or even considered it? I know you have his number, but have you used it? You have to wonder why that is. It's not because you're scared or because he's your professor or even because your family knows him. I doubt it even has to do with the age gap you said is there, because you've told me time and time again you haven't even thought about it when you're with him. So what's really holding you back? But it's not what's holding me back that she's trying to pry out of me. It's who. And that realization is a sucker punch to the gut that I feel everywhere. Her features soften when mine become hyper-aware of every answer to her questions. I haven't brought up Carter coming inside, even when he's picked me up and dropped me off. I've never been ready to introduce him to Ainsley, because a part of me knew there was something worth waiting for. A realization. My eyes water as I look at her. Fuck, Jenna. What am I going to do? Easton never came home last night, she tells me openly. If this is what you want, you need to talk to him. You both have clearly been with other people, so if you want to just be with him, dread fills my veins. But how do I even know he wants to be with me? We've fought too many times. He said awful things to me. Whoa, her eyes narrow. You've been holding out on me, girl. First, I'm going to need you to give me every detail, but not before we eat, because I really will go She-Hulk if I don't have something with this coffee. Her joking doesn't make me feel any better. It just locks me in my state of haze as I think about Easton. Again. How many times have I thought about him when I shouldn't have? Subconsciously, I've been comparing Carter to him, to what we had. And if he really feels the way he does about me when we argued, then I stand no chance. There's a chance that I'll experience heartbreak all over again. This time, because of Easton Wyatt. Chapter 27. I'm finishing my exam when I realize I'm the only one left in the room. Carter's eyes go to me more often now that nobody else can see. My first day of being recorded while teaching was yesterday. I showed up 10 minutes before class to set up and prepare for the lesson. It gave little opening for Carter and me to talk. I know he's thinking about it, what happened to us. He texted me the following day and asked how I was. My one-word response left him calling. I answered and had a 15-minute conversation with him about how Cap was doing, and how great supper was, and how much fun I had before telling him I made plans with Ainsley. But he looks at me now like he knows there's something more to it. He's a smart man. I wouldn't be surprised if my face is covered in guilt and sorrow. I may not even need to say the words for him to know if I just meet his eyes. Easton stayed out for the weekend, leaving me stewing in my contemplation. I didn't text him because I didn't want to have that conversation over the phone. But I realized after Sunday came and went that he wasn't coming back anytime soon. Jenna told me to rip off the Band-Aid, but I'd be ripping off too, and flesh would come with it. When I finish my test, I slowly pack my things and prepare myself. I slip my bag over my shoulder and make the walk up to his desk, gripping the bag strap in my hand.
Please look at me, Piper.
I give myself a moment, blink, and then tip my chin up to meet him with a frail smile. He accepts my paper and sets it down with the others, quickly ignoring it. I'm pretty sure I passed, I offer weakly. He stands, walking around his desk and sitting on the edge of it beside me. Reaching out, he brushes our hands together, linking our pinky fingers for a moment before drawing back. A subtle touch, quick, painless. It doesn't feel painless.
Talk to me,
he says. It's a soft demand, one that tells me to reach for the Band-Aid.
I can see it in your eyes, Piper.
I let out a tiny breath. See what?
You weren't ready.
My heart hurts. I close my eyes for a moment and push past the swirl of thoughts that flood my mind. I'm drowning in my indecision and pain, wondering if I'll survive if I submerge myself under the murky waters of my conscience. I want freedom from the pain that shoots through me like a drug in my bloodstream. I need clarity, just once. Swallowing hard, I open my eyes. There are no tears that greet my ducts or a sharp breath that escapes my lips, like I can no longer breathe. I asked for a temporary freedom and was given it enough to have this moment. I'm sorry. 2 little words with such a large meaning are out in the open between us. His eyes dull slightly, but his lips pull up into a knowing smile. I see his hurt, but I see something else too. Understanding.
You don't have to apologize,
he tells me simply, reaching out and squeezing my hand. It tugs on my heartstrings, but not as much as when he adds,
Make sure he treats you well, Piper. You deserve that, even if you think you don't.
I stare without blinking, taking in his acceptance and wondering if he'd always known. He'd had hope, but he wasn't holding on to it like I'd done for so long. When you kiss me, I say in a cautious whisper, what do you feel? He looks to the hall for a quick moment before leaning forward and brushing his lips against my cheek.
I'm not sure it matters what I feel, Piper. What's important is what you do, and I'll never pressure you to pretend that you feel more than you do. I mean it. You deserve to know what happiness feels like.
Drawing my bottom lip into my mouth when he pulls away, I feel the ghost touch of his lips on my cheek. Have you felt that? Happiness? He smiles.
Once upon a time.
But not now.
I want to be clear with you about something. I like spending time with you, hearing your thoughts and listening to your laugh. I love seeing how much you care about Ainsley, and how you hold on to memories of Danny. I'm happy, Piper, and was happy with you. But I'll be just fine, just like you will be.
I want to ask him how he knows, how he sounds so sure. I don't, though. Keeping the questions at bay, I give him a terse nod and take a deep breath. We're not breaking up because we never really dated. He's right. We had fun together in each other's company. It was a friendship that got mixed up in the possibility of something more. It was just never going to be enough.
You're graduating in a few weeks,
he notes, changing the topic like we're not just ending something. I manage to nod, a little taken aback. I have a ticket for you. If you want it, of course. My family said they'd love to see you. Jessie will be there. Rubbing my arm, I curse myself for even bringing it up. The ticket, my family.
I'm not going to tell them.
My eyes pop up to his. He shakes his head.
What happened can stay between us. I'm fine with that. Jessie, your parents, they'll never know. And as long as you're comfortable with me going, I'd love to. It's been great getting to know you, Piper. I have no doubt in my mind you'll go far.
A new kind of emotion takes over, thickening my throat. Gratitude. In case I've never told you, I admire you. You gave me a chance even when I was rude to you. I wouldn't be graduating if you hadn't.
You're a natural teacher.
I had help, I say, an easy smile finally gracing my lips. And thank you for what? For understanding, for not telling my family, for keeping us a secret? I settle with everything. He pushes himself up and stuffs his hands into his pockets.
I told you I've got your back, and I mean it. This doesn't change anything, Piper. You're going to graduate and go on to do amazing things, and I'll be there no matter what form. Friend, family acquaintance, former professor.
You're too nice, Professor Ford. He chuckles at my teasing. It feels good to hear the sound, like I won't walk out of the room feeling like my body is sinking lower and lower.
I'm just there for people I care about.
I'm sorry I couldn't have...
Hey, he breathes the words quietly. I don't want you to apologize for being honest with me. That's all I could ever ask for.
I wonder if he's thinking about his ex-fiancée when his eyes seem to distance themselves like he's lost in thought. Was their choice to stay together draining? Did he consider that being dishonest? Okay, I finally say, though there's caution in my tone like I'm afraid to turn around and leave. I know we'll both survive, that this isn't the end of the world. I've experienced far worse tragedies than potentially hurting somebody's feelings. But that doesn't mean I don't care.
Piper,
he says as I walk toward the door. I pause for a moment before turning, brushing hair behind my ear.
Take a deep breath and remember that your past doesn't define you. You're meant to live and love. Danny would have wanted that for you, no matter what might have happened between you two.
He doesn't know how much I needed those words. Then again, he's Carter Ford. Maybe he knew exactly how much I needed to hear them. Chapter 28. I stopped by the Inked Lotus with a sleeping Ainsley in the back seat. Evie said she had a rough day and shut down, refusing to sign to anybody. I have yet to get anything out of her about what happened, but I have a feeling it has a lot to do with kids in her class, based on the way she kept her eyes down the entire time I walked with her out to the car at pickup. We do what Danny always said calmed her down. Drove. Around town, on back roads, everywhere, until her head dipped and lids grew heavier. It was 10 minutes ago when she fell asleep, dozing off with soft snores. I'm not sure I knew where I was heading until the shop lights lit up the dark night. There's a parking spot right out front that I instantly take, noticing Jay outside the store smoking. He must notice the vehicle because he puts out the cigarette against the building and then stomps it into the pavement with his shoe before walking over. My window rolls down as he approaches it.
I thought that was you, Red.
I quickly press my finger to my lips and gesture toward the back seat where Ainsley is strapped in her booster seat. Hey, Jay. He glances at me, leaning against the sill of the open window.
He's not in right now. Had errands to run or something.
Oh. My brows furrow as I find myself nodding. Jay watches me for a moment, something crossing his expression. Well, I thought I'd just stop by. I haven't seen him in a while. I doubt he really cares, but he nods like he does. He's always been nice to me, respectful whenever I see him. He's a flirt, but stopped trying with me a long time ago.
We've been pretty swamped here lately. A lot of late nights.
He's covering for his friend. I get it. You don't have to lie, Jay. Listen, it was a bad idea to come here. Just forget about even mentioning us dropping by. I don't know why I thought it was a smart thing to do.
Piper.
It's the first time he's ever used my name. It sounds foreign coming from him.
I wasn't covering for him. Business has picked up, that's all.
But when I catch sight of the blinds moving slightly from the front window, I know who's watching us. I also know the car peeking out from around the building is the same one that should be running errands right now. I swallow my pride when Jay notices what caught my attention and clear my throat when he curses. Like I said, sorry I showed up. I need to get Ainsley home. It was stupid to have come.
Come on, Red.
I put my hands up. You're being a good friend to him, Jay. He needs that. He and I certainly can't be, so it's good he has you. He presses his lips together for a moment, eyes glistening in contemplation.
He needs you too, if it makes you feel any better. But you two are the most stubborn a-holes I've ever met.
Snorting unattractively, I shake my head at the ridiculous sentiment. He made it clear he doesn't need me. Look at how many people he sleeps with. It's not like he even waited before we stopped. Face flushing, I brush it off. I'm just tired. Ignore me. No, wait. He keeps a hold of the car so I can't drive away like I'm itching to do. My palm twitches on the gear shift, but doesn't move it into drive.
What do you mean all the people he slept with? Trust me, Red, he's not sleeping with anybody.
I blink.
What?
No, that's impossible. Even before things got tense with us, he'd either come home later than normal or not until the next day. He just shakes his head adamantly.
I'm telling you, he hasn't been sleeping with anybody. I'd know. The ass has been cramping my style. There's a permanent indent in my couch because of him.
All I can do is stare.
Jay's brows go up. I swear I'm telling you the truth. The nights he got home later was probably my fault. We all know I like drinking a little too much, and more than that, I like making stupid decisions while I drink. Easton tends to go with me to the bar when he knows I'm in a mood. That way I don't drink and drive or start more fistfights.
More? He winces.
I'm usually a happy drunk, but I have my moments. It doesn't matter. The guy's been sleeping on my couch for a while. It started after you two got into it about something. He wouldn't say what, and I knew better than to pry. I'm going to be real with you, Red. My friend is screwed up over you.
I gape. He just nods. My shoulders drop. He acted like
a piece of the male anatomy?
I appreciate that he's trying to keep it clean in front of Ainsley.
I'm sure. People usually act up when the chicks they're into seek out other guys.
I have nothing to say to that. He shrugs casually, like this is just another conversation to him.
You're his girl. I shouldn't say that because he'll kick my you-know-what, but it's true. He talks about you all the time, even now. And whatever happened between you two that left him drinking on my couch and making baked goods at 3 a.m. made me gain about 20 pounds, so thanks for that.
Normally, I'd find that funny. My lips refuse to waver with an oncoming smile or any form of amusement, though.
He's really been staying with you? He leans closer. Do you want to see my dessert collection at home? I can't have anybody else over, in fear that they think I got domesticated or some shit, or crap. It's like Betty Crocker threw up all over the place.
Just to be sure, I press. And he's never slept with anybody. He sighs, wiping a palm down the side of his face. I get it. I'm being annoying with the 20 questions. I just can't wrap my head around him not sleeping with anybody. I know he has the opportunities to, even witnessed the numbers slipped into his hand, or the looks he'd get when we were out shopping.
No, you were the only one, Red. Swear on what little remains of my masculinity.
Baking doesn't make you less masculine, I point out.
No, but smelling like sugar does.
I don't say anything right away. I never wanted to hurt him, Jay. I never wanted to hurt anyone.
I know you didn't.
My eyes go back to the building, but the blinds never move again. I take a deep breath and look in the rear view at Ainsley. Her chest still rises and falls in a slow rhythm, peaceful in her slumber. I should really go home. Tell him what? That I'm sorry? I don't know. Maybe don't say anything at all. Amusement lightens his face.
Trust me, the minute I step inside, he'll be hounding me for answers. Even pissed off, he worries about you. Even asks about that one.
He nods his chin toward the back. My chest fills. She asks about him, too. That isn't a lie, either. The first time she signed, "When is Easton coming home?" I felt a deep ping in my heart that radiated pain down my whole body. Then she'd ask again. I could never give her a sure answer, so I'd lie and tell her soon. I just hope that won't stay a lie for long. Bye, Jay. He pats the car and smiles.
Bye, Red. If you need any more piercings, well, best go to the brute in there. A-hole wasn't too happy with me for touching his girl.
His girl. The thought covers my skin in goosebumps as I put the car into reverse. He backs away and gives me a wink and a wave, back to his old self. As I back out of the parking spot and pull away from the curb, the front door opens, and I see a familiar face in the rearview mirror. He doesn't wave. Chapter 29. I know something is wrong when I walk into the school and Principal Harris and Evie are talking together amongst themselves. As soon as I spot Ainsley sitting in Harris's office, my lips twitch with oncoming anger, like the day I left. Once Evie looks up and sees me, she offers a small smile. "What's going on?" I demand, not even trying to be nice. I like Evie. She's a good person and a great teacher. Without her, I wouldn't have thought to take sign language or quit here and find something that makes me happier. It's Principal Harris who speaks. "We've had some complications with some girls in class harassing Ainsley. Ms. Burke brought it to my attention, and we're handling it." I point to the room. "Care to explain why my kid is the one isolated, then? Where are the girls responsible? What have they been saying?" Evie reaches out and squeezes my hand in comfort, her typical default. "I promise that they're being taken care of. Ainsley has been okay. We just wanted to speak with her." My teeth grind. Aren't girls supposed to wait to start being catty? Why the hell are they starting early? "Miss Montgomery," I hold my finger out at Harris. "No, with all due respect, I don't want to hear what you have to say. I want to know what they've been telling her. She hasn't been herself lately, and I haven't been able to get anything out of her." To nobody's surprise, Principal Harris arches her brows and crosses her arms over her chest. "That seems like a problem. Are there concerns at home we should know about? If she won't talk to you, how is she going to communicate with anybody else?" My lips part at her inquiry. Evie turns to her boss. "I mean, no disrespect, Angie, but that's inappropriate." "No," I tell Evie, not bothering to look away from the devil's spawn standing in front of me. "You want to know what's been going on at home, Angie? That beautiful, smart, kind-hearted little girl in there has been struggling. She's had more awful things happen to her in her lifetime than most people I know. She's grieving her father, her voice, and her chance at normalcy. I bet that's what the girls pick on her about, right? It's because she's different than them. They think because she doesn't talk that she's somehow beneath them. That kind of attitude will only get worse if you don't stop it now. And before you say anything about how I must be an awful parent for not forcing her to talk, know this. Ainsley is just like her father. If she doesn't want to talk, she won't. If she doesn't want to tell me what happened, she won't. Instead, she'll hold in everything that's happened until she breaks. She'll latch onto me and never let go until there are no more tears left to cry. And during that period, you bet your ass that I wish I could hear her voice when I tell her that everything will be okay. That life won't be this hard all the time. The worst part of this entire situation is that I can't make a promise like that when all she's known is grief. So answer me this. Who the fuck do you think you are for judging me? Or for trying to dictate that precious girl's life? You're supposed to be a role model here, somebody who gives a shit. Be honest with yourself, Angie. You hate your job and you hate being around difficult situations. If I'm completely wrong, then prove it. Do something about the kids responsible for bullying my little girl before they get worse. Because I assure you, they will. I turn on my heel and walk away from the gaping expression of the woman I'm proud I didn't smack. No matter how tempting that is, it won't do anybody any good. So I walk into Harris's office and kneel in front of Ainsley. Her eyes are wide as she stares at me, then fill with tears as she launches herself into my arms. I breathe in the lavender of her shampoo and wrap my arms around her in a tight hug. You heard all of that, huh? I should apologize for swearing, for making a scene. If I were a good parent, I'd tell her not to swear or repeat those words. But I don't. I just hold her, let her squeeze me until we both pull away. I'm sorry you've been having a hard time in school, Nugget. I brush hair behind her ear. She reaches out and places a palm against my cheek, her lips parting ever so slightly and making my heart burst in my chest. But then she closes her mouth. I smile. No matter what they say to you, be true to yourself. That's all your father could ever want, okay? She signs, okay. I kiss her cheek. I think we should get ice cream. How does that sound? Chocolate chip cookie dough for me and brownie bits for you. Her eyes brighten. I offer her my hand as we walk out of the small side office and stop in front of a red-faced Principal Harris and a wavering-lipped Evie. I smile at them both, though it's harder to hold when I lock eyes with the older woman. If you ever speak to my daughter alone without calling me first, there will be hell to pay. Do you understand me? Harris's jaw ticks, but she nods. Great. Have a wonderful day. I feel her scathing glare on the back of my head, and don't bother looking. People like her aren't worth my time to be pissed over, and there's no way the gossipers that encompass the office secretaries won't have our conversation all over school by tomorrow morning. Angie Harris hates her reputation being tainted. Too bad for her. I don't care. Walking out of my advisor's office with a big smile on my face, I head across the quad to a familiar brick 3-story building that houses the office I've acquainted myself with well. The smile doesn't fade, even when a couple jocks bump into me without saying sorry, or a girl gives me a dirty look when I realized too late that she's behind me before letting go of the hallway door. All I can focus on is the straight A's in each one of my classes, leading up to finals this week. Even though I had to miss some over the semester to tend to Ainsley, or my own selfish needs, or the placement fiasco, I worked my ass off for what I've received, and know as long as I can study that I'll walk away with a 4.0 by the time finals are finished. When I near the staff offices and walk down the corridor where Carter's room is at the end on its own, I hear 2 familiar voices and stop outside the door.
Fault. Don't you think it's a little unfair to blame her for this?
My brows pinch over Carter's question. The tone of his voice is firm, disbelieving. But it's my brother's voice that breaks through that has me pressing my back against the wall and debating on leaving before they can catch me eavesdropping.
We're not blaming her, man. It seems like...
You don't have a right to judge, Ren says harshly. We love you and love her, but it's hard for me, for us. Neither of us expects you to understand because you and Elizabeth never wanted kids. I hold my breath when Carter responds in a cool tone I haven't heard him use before.
How the hell would you know what we did or didn't want? I get that you're upset, Ren, but you have no right coming into my office and going off on me about shit you don't understand.
Elizabeth said... Ren pauses, suddenly sounding unsure. I'm sorry, Carter. Liz told me that you guys didn't agree about having a family, which is why you two separated. There's a long, tense moment where nobody says anything. I wish I could make my presence known and see what Carter's expression must be. But I remain still where I am.
Did she now?
Carter.
Whatever. Liz is gone, and her reasonings were clearly not ones she wanted to share. For the record, I did want kids. It was her who didn't. Whatever preconceived notions you have in your head right now, get rid of them. They don't even justify why you're being a bitch to Piper.
The sound of my name rings warning alarms in my ears. Biting down on my bottom lip, I shift slightly without making any noise and wait for Ren or my brother to reply. It's Jessie who says,
She's not intentionally. Oh, come on, Jessie. You both treat your sister like crap. You never talk to her and barely ask about her. She thinks you don't love her, so she stopped reaching out.
My brother is at a loss for words for the first time. I just had dinner with her a few weeks back. We're fine. She knows I love her, Carter, and you can't call my wife a bitch. I'm grateful for Carter now more than ever when he defends me again. It's more than I can ask from my own blood. Half-blood. I think Jessie cares about that distinction.
I simply stated that she's being bitchy toward your sister. Piper knows something is up between you guys, and she thinks she's the center of it. She didn't ask for the situation she's in. You can't fault her for anything. Be logical human beings. This whole thing is getting out of hand,
Jessie states, a chair scraping back.
We were in the area and wanted to stop by to say hi. So, hi. We should get going, though. That's it? What else is there, Carter? You're not going to see your sister? She's busy. How do you know?
Carter throws back. It's Ren who replies. I know you must think I'm an awful person for avoiding her and Ainsley, but I'm not. I'm just a woman who's desperate to have what she does. Watching her with Ainsley hurts. You have no idea what seeing those two does to me.
Wow.
One word. One short little word from Professor Ford, and I know Ren is about to learn a lot that she clearly doesn't know already. My anger builds with all the things I want to tell her, to yell at her. But I press my lips tight together and wait for Carter to do that for me.
I never took you for the selfish type, Ren. If you gave your sister-in-law a chance, you'd see how hard she's had it. Imagine being her age and being told that not only is your best friend dead, but you're now legally responsible for his daughter. Put yourself in her shoes when she found out that same daughter no longer verbally speaks. How hard that must have been for Piper to go through doctors and therapists to try getting her to say even one word, to cry over the loss of Danny, anything. Do you know she would have been done with school by now if she didn't have Ainsley? Her life got thrown upside down because of Danny's death, and through it all, she survived. I've been able to witness an amazing woman in Piper that you two clearly don't see because you're too busy being stuck in your own problems. I don't know how you can deal with yourselves being jealous and petty towards somebody whose family. If she were my sister, I would make sure to at least check in on her to see how she's coping. Have you even bothered to do that much? I went to the fucking funeral, my brother growls. That's more than you can say, asshole. You're right. Carter's voice is even. I know how much that upset Piper, and how rude it was to not even send flowers to Mabel. She told me off because she had every right to. And you know what? I'm glad she did. Maybe she should do the same to you. But I know she won't. She's hurt that her own big brother won't give her the time of day, so she distances herself in order to give you the space you've made it clear you want. No wonder she thinks you don't love her. Listen here. Jess, Ren says quietly. He's not wrong. We've been caught up in trying to have kids that we neglected a lot of people. But Piper the most. She is your sister. A heavy sigh sounds in the room. It's not that I don't love her, okay? But our paths are different. Our mothers are different. Piper and I we're nothing alike. We have nothing to talk about. Danny was our safe topic. So what? Carter doubts. You can still talk about him. Or, make basic conversation. Ask how she's doing. See how school is. You always hold back, Jessie. That's not fair to her. She's trying. Nothing. My brother stays silent. Shaking my head, I turn on my heel in defeat before he decides to speak up again. Like I said, it's not that I don't love her. She's my sister. We'll just never be close. Hurt squeezes my chest as I absorb that. He says he loves me, but I don't believe him. Maybe he's right. We're too different. Our age, our backgrounds, we may not have a lot in common, but I know I could hold a conversation with him if he really wanted to try. Carter mirrors that thought. It's a shame you're willing to walk away from her, man. She's a good person, a hard worker, and a great mother to Danny's little girl. Your personal problems shouldn't get in the way of finally getting to know her after all these years. All Jessie says is, yeah, well, I don't expect him to walk out of the room until it's too late. My glazed eyes meet his widening in shock as I grip my bag and stare at his pale face. Shit, Piper. I hold up my hand. You've said all you had to say, Jessie. But don't you dare lie to me and say that you love me. You just feel obligated to because we have Dad's blood running through our veins. Rubbing my lips together, I dig through my bag and see Ren come out of the room from the corner of my eye. I pull out 2 tickets, passing one to each of them. Come to the commencement ceremony or don't. At this point, I really don't care. I've had enough of half-assed love in my lifetime. I don't need yours. Ren frowns as Jessie's eyes dull. I'm surprised to see hurt. It's almost as if he does care in some way. Or maybe he just hates knowing I called him on his bullshit. Either way, I meant what I said. I'm done. Carter walks out and stands behind them, sympathy edged into his features. I ignore him and look at my brother and his wife, suddenly wishing I'd just gone home. Anywhere but here to share the good news. Before you act like the other half of my blood that we don't share is bad, you should probably remember who gave you a roof over your head and food in your stomach. You can say that we're different and have nothing in common that connects us, but we both come from a good home with good values. My mom might not be yours, but she's never treated you like that. You were never grateful for that, and it showed. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry that you lost your mother and sister. But I know what it's like to lose somebody. We could have leaned on each other, connected that way, grieved, mourned. Instead, you chose to make me an outcast in your life. I look to Ren. And you. I'm sorry that you're struggling to have kids. You can hate me all you want, make excuses as to why you can't come to dinner that I got up way too early to make, and avoid me at all costs. In fact, throw away that ticket before you leave campus if that's what you want. But you don't know me, so you can't make any assumptions about how easy I must have it to be a 20-something-year-old mother who had to drop everything. I wasn't prepared. I made sacrifices. I've cried myself to sleep and tortured my liver with alcohol when shit got tough. But Carter is right. I survived. Danny counted on me to make sure his baby girl has a good life, and I can't have toxic people in it if this is how they act. She blinks back tears as I step away. I have nothing more to say to them. If I even try opening my mouth again, I'll break. I can feel the beginning of tears well in my eyes, and I refuse to let them see me fall apart. Not here. Not now. I turn on my heel and ignore Carter calling out my name.
He defended me, and I'm thankful for that. Nothing will make how my brother feels about me any better, though. When I lock myself in my car, I ignore the burning tears that want to fall. I focus on how beautiful the day is, how the snow is gone, the sun is out, and the temperature is warm enough to wear long sleeves outside without a jacket. There are no more snow squalls, no more ice. It's a good day despite my brother. When I park my car in my driveway at home, a crushing weight rests on my chest. I struggle to breathe when the sound of fresh air from the open car windows and loud noise of passing traffic aren't there to distract me any longer. It hurts to breathe, to not think, to not cry. I walk in the door and stop dead in my tracks when I see Easton at the bottom of the stairs. Through teary eyes that I can no longer hold off, I see his expression morph from surprise to concern in a heartbeat when he sees my face. Not anger, not accusation, just worry. But not having the energy to hash out the turmoil boiling me alive from everything that's happened, I gently brush past him and enter my room, locking the door behind me. I hear his footsteps. I hear the knock, but I don't answer. I text my parents. Me. Are you still picking up Ainsley and bringing her to your house for the night? Mom. Yes, we'll have her back to you tomorrow afternoon. Your father bought her new movies to watch. Me. Thank you. Shutting off my phone, I toe out of my shoes and strip down until I'm just in my underwear before crawling under my blankets. I let the first tear fall into my pillow and soak into the worn cotton, falling asleep as the rest follow suit in endless streams. When I get up the next morning, I open my door to find Easton's slumped form sleeping against the wall right outside. His long legs are spread out in front of him, his arms crossed loosely on his chest, and his lips parted as he snores softly without knowing I'm staring. My throat closes from the swarm of emotion as I watch the man who's ignored me for weeks sleep there like my protector. And that's when I know for sure. God, I've always known. Chapter 30. The coffee mug in my hand steams as I stare at the black liquid filling it to the rim. I'm so focused on it that I don't hear anybody walk into the room until a husky voice says my name. Blinking up at my roommate, I see him watching me with pinched brows where I sit at the island. A raw bagel sits on the counter in front of me that he trails his focus to.
You haven't had your coffee yet.
He walks over and grabs the bagel, splitting it in half and popping it into the toaster. Picking up the butter in silent question, I nod my head and watch him grab a knife from the drawer to spread it with. You slept outside my room, I answer quietly, setting my cup down without taking a sip. It's not too hot. It's the exact temperature I always drink it. But I can't think about caffeine when I keep remembering the way his body slept feet away from me in the cold hallway. His back stays turned to me as he waits for the toaster to pop up with my breakfast. He grabs a plate from the cabinet and sets it in front of him.
You're upset.
Rubbing my lips together, I will him to look at me. He doesn't. He grabs the bagel as soon as it comes up and butters both sides, taking his time. When he brings the plate over to me, he tips his chin and grabs the carton of eggs from the fridge.
Is that all you're eating?
He asks. Are we really not going to talk about what happened? Ignoring the food and drink ready to be consumed, I lean back on my stool. You called me crazy. He stops what he's doing, staring at the eggs that are opened by the stove.
I shouldn't have said that.
I'm not crazy.
I know.
Grabbing a frying pan, he places it over the burner and flicks the knob on. Once a couple eggs are broken in it and begin sizzling, he loosens a sigh.
Jay hates it when I bake. He barely even cooks for himself. Guy buys pre-made food and neglects his kitchen.
Hands twitching in my lap, I try thinking of how to start the kind of conversation worth having with him. I don't want to talk about Jay right now, Easton. Can we talk about what happened? He flips the eggs, not saying anything right away. I wait for him to be the one to respond, letting my food grow cold as he waits for his breakfast to finish cooking. It isn't until he's seated across from me when he meets my eyes, and I notice how tired he looks. Something tells me it's from more than just poor sleep outside my room.
I didn't sleep with anybody, Piper.
My appetite becomes non-existent, even for coffee. That's what Jay said too.
I'm not lying. He wasn't either.
I shrug. It's really none of my business what you do with people, Easton. We didn't make any rules when we started sleeping together. It would have made things easier in case you wanted to.
I didn't want to.
He cuts me off. He grips the fork in one hand and rubs the back of his hand with another.
Look, I'm not good at this. The talking thing. The feelings thing. Maybe you're right. Maybe we should have talked about things when we started having sex regularly. But I didn't think it mattered.
I cringe. He grumbles.
I mean, I didn't think you were interested in anybody else. I sure as hell haven't been. Yeah, I get why you think I was hooking up with chicks on the side, but I wasn't. It was only ever you, Piper. It's only you.
Lips parting, I fumble to formulate a response to that. It's only you. Present tense. As in, he still thinks that. What exactly are you trying to tell me? Jenna said, and Jay. I shake my head and rub my temples. You never acted like you wanted more with me. You'd leave every single night, and you were hot and cold about, well, everything. You barely talk to me. You never want to have conversations about your past. It's like you never wanted me to know you as anything more than your roommate. He grinds his teeth.
That isn't true.
I throw back.
It's not?
Straightening, he sets his fork down and blows out a breath.
I got you flowers.
Confusion sweeps through me.
What?
When did you... My words die down when I look at the empty vase by the sink where my Valentine flowers were. I swallow. You said they weren't from you, that you had no idea what I was talking about when you sent them.
I lied.
Scoffing, I processed those 2 words. I don't even know what to say right now. Why would you lie about that? He stares at his eggs.
Piper, I already admitted I'm not good at this.
Try, I grind out. His shoulders tense as he looks up at me through thick lashes.
We started out having sex because we were using each other. You wanted an escape, so did I. But then it stopped being about distracting myself. I thought you were feeling the same way until you said the flowers were probably from Professor Loverboy.
I throw my hands up. Because you said they weren't from you, which, by the way, I felt so stupid for assuming. I take a moment and absorb what he called Carter. Did you really just refer to him as Professor Loverboy? He ignores my question.
I didn't know you were even talking to anybody else. Like you said, we never agreed to be exclusive. I figured if you were interested in somebody else, who the hell was I to stop you?
You were rude to me about him, I accuse coolly, crossing my arms. You made awful comments that weren't even accurate at the time. I get that you probably think I'm easy for being fine with casual sex and for getting involved with my professor. But it wasn't like that. I'm not like that. His eyes darken instantly.
I never called you that. You're not easy.
No, I'm just a taste of crazy, right? His nostrils flare.
I was out of line, and I'm sorry. If I didn't care so much, I wouldn't even think twice about you sleeping around. But I do. I fucking care a lot, and it tortures me knowing you're going out and having fun with somebody who isn't me.
He slaps a palm against his chest.
I want to take you on dates. I want to make you laugh. I want to be there for you when you're upset. Me, not him. Not anybody else.
All I can do is stare as he lowers his hand, now forming a closed fist, to his lap and shakes his head. His breathing evens out as he stares at his food. Both of our breakfasts are left untouched as we hash this out.
I have a lot of problems,
he tells me so quietly, so brokenly, that I can barely hear him speak.
They stem from being in the system my whole life. I'll always have them. I'm not good at talking because it became survival for me not to. Not talking meant not being beaten. It meant being left alone. I come from a place where expressing yourself isn't common. Telling you that I want to be with you, only you, is something I can't just say out loud. So, I had to let you walk away. I said horrible shit to you that I can't take back. All I can ask is that you give me a chance.
It's hard to swallow as we lock eyes. His are dark and pleading and defeated, like he's already determined what my answer is.
Get to know me before you decide I'm too damaged. I know I'm not as polished as him, But I can support you in any way you need. Be there for you and Ainsley." In a grumbled tone, he admits, "Dudette has grown on me. Used to being around kids, but none quite like her."
Running my palms down the leggings I slid on this morning, I take a deep breath. "Carter isn't as polished as you think." His eye twitches. "And I'm not with him anymore." That gets his attention. I wet my lips and lean my arms on the edge of the counter. "I'm not saying you had a right to butt into my business with him, but you weren't wrong. I think I wanted to feel close to my past, like maybe it would be enough to keep Danny close. I was afraid of losing that." My throat closes up as I battle off tears. I knew what I was starting with Easton the second time I invited him into my bed. I used his body to forget the pain until the line we drew was buried under muddied water. But I don't want to forget. I want to remember. Danny, our past, all the memories, even if they're bad. In the depths of my mind, Carter would get me that. But it would take something else from me. Something Easton already has. "You're kind of an asshole," I tell him. His lips purse. "But I want to know why that is. I want to get to know you, learn about your past, your homes, how you met Jay, what got you interested in going into business together. I was never going to be happy like I want to be with Carter. I just thought I could. He's not you, though, and I'm sorry if I hurt you by not realizing that sooner." For a moment, he just stares. He doesn't even blink, just sits with his eggs no longer steaming and his face no longer red from anger. Then he moves. He's in front of me, cupping my face in his palms and looking at me in disbelief.
"Yeah?"
I smile. "Yeah."
"Thank fuck."
His lips come crashing down on mine, the sensation taking over my body as he sweeps his tongue in my mouth the first chance he gets. I sigh into the kiss as he pulls me up from the stool and grabs my thighs to wind my legs around his waist. He sets me down on the edge of the counter, barely missing the food behind me. Our lips never pull away. They slide over each other seamlessly, gently, but with a raw hunger that feeds the feeling I've been searching for, the one that fills my chest and limbs and mind. One of my hands wraps around the back of his head, the other palming the rapid beat of his heart. I breathe him in because I can, no longer feeling like I'm drowning. He grabs me again and sets me on my feet, his hands trailing down my sides until he flips me around and bends me over the counter so my stomach rests against the edge.
"I need to be inside you."
His palms trace my body, kneading my skin as he rolls his hard cock against my ass. I close my eyes when I feel his lips graze my neck, trailing upward to my ear.
"I need you to be honest with me."
I swallow, nodding as his breath radiates off my cheek.
"Did you sleep with him?"
Closing my eyes, I count to 3. "Yes." His lips press against my cheek.
"Okay."
To my surprise, he spins me around again until we're face to face.
"Okay?" "We weren't together, Piper,"
he points out, his thumb touching every inch of my face that it can.
"I'm not going to fault you for being with him, but just know that I'm not going to fuck you against this counter because you mean more than that. You may have been with him, but I'm about to show you he's the last guy you'll ever need who isn't me. Understood?"
My mouth is dry as I nod. He kisses me in a sultry way, letting his lips and tongue and teeth linger until I'm lost in him. Barely pulling back, he whispers,
"I'm going to love you so much, baby girl."
The clothes we wear are shed one article at a time as he carries me upstairs. Instead of taking us to my room, he veers to the right and leads us into his. My back hits his bed, nothing but my panties left on my otherwise naked body. He kisses my breasts with fervor, drawing one pebbled nipple in at a time and making circular motions between my legs with his fingers just above my clothed clit until I'm writhing in his touch. Pulling him back up to kiss me, he settles above my body and dominates my mouth. I arch my pelvis to meet his hard cock, now peeking out from the waistband of his boxers. Rubbing against him, I mule into his mouth from the friction. He pulls back, his hot breath on my lips, and smirks at me.
What do you want, Piper?
I don't even hesitate. You. Taking one of his hands, I set his palm against my chest and guide it down my body. I don't let go as I cup both our hands over my heated core, wanting him to touch me there. He kisses me slowly, deeply, as his hand moves over me in tortuously slow movements until I'm moaning into his mouth. He moves aside the material that separates his finger from my center, playing with the arousal that's waiting for him beneath. I arch into him as he enters me with a finger, keeping my hand on top of his to help him set the pace. He doesn't need any guidance. He never has. Easton Wyatt knows what he's doing. East, I whisper, drawing back and forcing my eyes to stay on his, even as he adds a second finger and works me. He brushes his lips against mine once, again, until he hovers them just out of reach.
I need to say something, and I want you to hear me out, okay?
I just nod.
I love you. I love Ainsley. I love the nights we watch TV and eat junk food together, even if it's awful musicals or ridiculous reality shows.
Teary-eyed, I laugh. You love those reality shows, he smirks.
I love making dinner with you, for you, and seeing your face light up when you get gift cards for office supplies.
He fits a third finger inside of me and curves them to hit the perfect spot until I see double.
I fucking love everything about us, even the bad shit. The bad shit keeps us real. It keeps us fighting and making up because we know this is worth it. You are more than just sex, Piper. You are it.
I cup his face and lock eyes with him as he thrusts into me again and again, my vision blurry from the tears welling in my eyes. You'll never know how much I love that you and Ainsley get along, and how you gave her a nickname and cook for us when I can't. I don't want to fight Easton. I just want you. His eyes darken as he kisses me, the words activating something primal in him as he withdraws his fingers and slides my panties down my legs until they're somewhere on his floor. I protest the loss of his touch before he stands up and drops his boxers, his erection hard and ready as he climbs back over me and positions himself between my open thighs. Suddenly, his fingers aren't what I'm missing at all. I love you, I whisper, kissing him gently. I feel him probe my entrance, his hands finding mine and holding them at our sides as he slowly enters me. Inch by delicious inch, I feel him stretch me and make himself at home. We kiss as he moves back and pushes in, not rushing our lips or tongue or hips. He does exactly what he says. He loves me. He loves my body and touches every piece of skin he can get his hands and mouth on, until the only thing I can think about is him. The way he thrusts unhurried, how he interlocks our hands. His hold is soothing, his kisses claiming, and his love consuming. My chest fills with a burst of light as he locks our lips and thrusts so deep that I spasm around him, never letting go. I grab a hold of his hands and wrap my legs around his waist and lose myself in this man completely. But I know, when the moment is over, I'll find myself just as quickly. In his arms, in his bed, surrounded by everything he's willing to tell me. And when he spills himself inside of me, he buries his face in the crook of my neck and whispers 3 words.
I love you.
His nose trails across my cheek until our lips lock and my arms wrap around his neck.
How long do we have until Ainsley is back?
I grin against his lips. Hours, he hums.
I'll make it work.
Laughing when he pulls himself up, he grabs a hold of my sides and flips me over, positioning me on my hands and knees. In one quick thrust, he's inside me again. I drop my head back and moan, arching my spine and meeting his hips every time he drives into me. He reaches around me and plays with my clit, already sated from my orgasm before. I bite my arm when his free hand comes up and pinches one of my nipples between his fingers. He only plays with it for a moment before the same fingers reach my mouth. Suck. Not sure what he's going to do, I wrap my lips around the 2 digits he offers me and suck them into my mouth. His cock twitches inside of me, but never falters from the rhythm. He groans as he draws his fingers out and moves them back to my clit. His lips trail down my back, nipping and licking as his thrusts become harder, faster. The sound of our skins smacking against each other turns me on more, knowing our mixed cum from the first time is coating us both. He pinches my clit, circling it with his thumb, before using his free hand to hold my hips as he bends over me and enters me faster. "This time will be quick," he says into my shoulder blades, kissing me there. "But then I'll go slow, mark you. You're mine, Piper. You'll feel me, and only me, for the rest of the day." My eyes roll in the back of my head as he puts all his weight on the back of me and pinches my clit until we both come again. His teeth bite down on my shoulder, causing me to jerk with him still inside of me. I can feel his warmth trickling down my thighs and know I need to clean up, but don't get a chance before he's moving my head and kissing me again. After another hour and a half of sex, I'm sore and sated and sweaty in his sheets. His body wraps around me as he kisses the back of my neck from the spooned position that we're laying in. I close my eyes and listen to his breathing, letting it calm my own down until our heartbeats sync. He's right. I feel him everywhere. I smile. Chapter 31. I sit on the edge of a bench by a large fountain and watch Mabel kneel over her section of the community garden, smiling at how peaceful she is. When she saw me, I knew what kind of day it would be. She looked through me like I was a stranger. She didn't have to call me somebody else's name for me to know the polite distance in her eyes meant she wasn't lucid. It's getting worse, which is why Ainsley has seen less of her. I'll bring her for half an hour before taking her home when a glaze finds Mabel's eyes. But today, I needed to see her, even when the nurse on the phone told me she wasn't feeling well. Nurse Douglas has been one of the main nurses tending to Mabel besides Glenda. She sits down next to me and smiles. "Is everything okay, Piper?" For once, I nod and mean it. Yeah, everything is great, except Mabel not remembering me. She's getting worse, isn't she? It seems like she's less lucid these days. Her lips don't hesitate to waver downward, the frown evident on her face. "I won't lie to you, we're concerned. Some patients slip at slower rates than others, and Mabel hasn't been one of those cases." Rubbing my lips together, I bob my head up and down and watch the woman in question tend to the plant in front of her. How can somebody remember how to plant and care for a flower, but not remember her own family? It just doesn't make any sense. Douglas's hand comes down on mine, patting it. "People subconsciously attach themselves to things from the past. It's their way of holding on to pieces of their old selves. Hers is gardening. We have some who paint and play the piano. It's not uncommon. It can be difficult to accept, though." Mabel leans back on her knees and appreciates her work with a bright smile on her face. It makes me happy that she's doing what she loves. I can't be upset at her for not remembering Danny or Ainsley. It's not her fault. "I'm graduating this weekend," I announce, sighing. I really wanted everybody to be there. My parents, my brother, Mabel. I look from the older woman to the younger nurse. I know she can't come, though. It would have just been nice to see her face in the crowd and know she's watching me. Sympathy as Douglas squeezing my hand in hers. She always used to tell me that I would go places because of my strength, but I never believed her, I admit quietly. I remember my senior year of high school, when she asked if I was going to college. I told her where I was planning to attend, but hadn't decided what I'd do with the history major I chose. I find myself laughing lightly, shaking my head. Mabel told me that I'd make a wonderful professor someday. She said I had what it takes to be in front of a classroom with a no-nonsense attitude while I taught what I was passionate about. I didn't believe her, even laughed it off. Me a professor? Nah. Then she told me in true Mabel form that maybe her premonition got mixed up and I'd just end up with a professor in the future. I'd forgotten about that until this moment. Mabel always got feelings about things. Most of those never came to fruition. Secretly, I think anybody who knew about them were glad. Danny would bring up whatever weird thing she said she predicted and blew it off. But the one time she was right was when she'd told Danny and me to be careful driving back to our homes after we visited her. She said she'd gotten a bad feeling about the upcoming storm. That had been a week before Danny's accident. before his death. Making a face, I force the thought away and ask, "Do you believe in those sorts of things? That people can predict what happens?" She hasn't been right most of the time, even if I may go down the professor track. I don't know if I believe in some supernatural ability to know when things happen, but there are some people who are hyper-aware of situations, especially if there's logic tied to them. I can't help but laugh. Sorry, I know this isn't funny, but Mabel isn't exactly the hyper-aware kind. Maybe she used to be, but that's not her anymore. Most of the time, she doesn't even know who I am. It's like she's a totally different woman. I know it feels that way, but she's still Mabel. She's still the woman you know and love, just a little lost at times. I press my lips together. "I'm sorry she can't be at your graduation," she adds sincerely. "If there were a way to make it work, I would. There's just too much of a risk with how she's been behaving lately. The doctor would like to do an examination with her soon." My eyes widen. "An examination?" "It's just to test her cognitive skills." Blowing out a breath, my shoulders loosen as I watch Mabel move on to a different flower. "How has she been with everyday life? I know some patients with dementia struggle to do basic things. Is she—" When Douglas hesitates, I know I need to be worried. "Mabel has been having problems doing certain tasks. In the past few weeks, we've had to help her go to the bathroom and bathe because she can't remember how to do it. Like I said, the state of her mind is slipping at a faster rate than normal. She can still eat on her own, and we're monitoring her very closely to make sure she's taken care of. I planned on telling you before you left. I just wanted you to get some time in with her before I broke the news." My lips weigh down. "What does that mean for her in the long term? If she loses the ability to function?" "We'll monitor her more closely," she assures quickly. "She's in good hands here, Piper. I promise we're taking care of her." I know they are, but that doesn't lessen the anxiety building in the pit of my stomach. I just don't know how I'll handle it if there comes a day where I have to see feeding tubes in her because she doesn't know how to eat by herself. I read that some people starve themselves to death because they don't know how to live. "Hey," her hand squeezes mine tightly, drawing me out of my mind. "We are not going to let that happen. We have patients here who are far worse off than Mabel, and they're still doing fine. And even if it comes to a feeding tube, at least she'll still be alive." I close my eyes, knowing she's right. I'm sorry for freaking out. I've just been having a hard time lately, and things are finally working out for me. But then there's Mabel. "You shouldn't compare your situations. Mabel may be struggling, but she's happy, Piper. We both know she wants that for you, too. So don't worry about her. That's our job. Enjoy your life and all the little things. Leave the rest for us. We can handle it. Can you do that for me?" I give her a small smile. "I can try." She pats my hand and stands. "That's all I can ask, then. You're doing well, though? I know the last few times you were here you seemed a little upset, but there's something in your eyes that makes me think it's better." My cheeks heat. I'm doing better than I have in a long time. A knowing smile graces her face. "It's a boy, isn't it? I know that look. I've had it on my face, too." The blush deepens. "Yeah, it's a boy." "Good for you, sweetie. I've watched you dedicate yourself to Mabel and her great-granddaughter and hoped you'd find somebody to share your time with. Is he good to you?" My throat thickens as I look up at her, lips wavering as I think about him. "Even better. He's good to both of us." Her eyes warm. "I'm happy for you." "Thank you." She gives me one last look before walking back into the building, leaving me with Mabel as she focuses on her garden. Dirt coats her light purple pants and the beige gloves on her hands. She seems to be content in the dirt and mulch, surrounded by life. Just watching her eases an anxiety in my chest, even though this woman isn't the same one who could bake the best cookies from memory alone. She never looked at recipes once, or even measured the ingredients. She'd just pour everything into a bowl, and the outcome would be the same every time. "Muscle memory, dear," she told me once. I always told her I wish I had that ability, but no matter how much she tried teaching me her favorite recipes, I'd always mess them up. Danny never did, though. He was a natural, just like his grandmother. Thinking about him no longer hurts. Not the good memories, anyway. Even on the off moments I think about our last night, I refuse to let it pierce my heart. We made a choice that can't be taken back. There were consequences that can't be changed. He couldn't move on, but I can. Standing up, I hesitantly walk over to Mabel and put my hands in the big pocket of the sweatshirt I stole from Easton this morning. Hi, Mabel. I know you don't remember me, but I just wanted to say it was good seeing you, and I take a deep breath and watch her pat down the dirt around her freshly planted flowers. I've been thinking a lot about Danny, who you probably don't remember either. But he was a great guy, somebody we both cared for deeply. Anyway, I've been thinking a lot about the past and everything that's happened between us. And I think I finally found peace. Happiness, even. I know you've told me that I'd find it with somebody someday, but I never believed you because I was too caught up in Danny. But you were right. I just wanted you to know. I lick my lips and watch her hands pause from her project before looking up at me slowly. The brimmed hat she wears shielding her eyes from the sun we're graced with today. I know, dear. You two were always meant to love other people. I gape at her. Did she... Mabel? She blinks. I step closer. I found the guy I could spend forever with. I really have. I think Danny would be happy with my choice. She smiles, but it falters. Good, good. That's it. The moment, the microscopic moment of clarity is gone. But I take it as a victory, because at least she remembered, even if only for a second. It's all I can ask, knowing her condition is progressing. I love you, I tell her softly, backing up. She tilts her head. You're a very sweet girl to say that to an old woman like me. I manage to smile before saying goodbye, nodding at the nurse who's watching us, letting her know I'm heading out. When I pass Douglas in the hall, heading to the front doors, she brushes my arm as I pass her and gives me a warm smile. She'll be okay, Piper, she calls after me lightly, and I know she will. I trust everybody that works here who's encouraged me throughout every visit. They let me have a birthday party for Ainsley and helped me calm down Mabel when she had an episode and forgot us. The people who work here are strong. They have to be to witness what happens to the patients. I don't envy them, but I do respect them and what they do for families like mine. When I make it outside, I see Easton sitting in the driver's seat and glancing up at me from the sketch pad resting on the steering wheel. He closes it and sets it aside when I climb in and buckle. You could have come in, you know. He shakes his head, leaning forward to give me a quick peck on the lips. Another time, Piper. You needed to talk to her alone. He's right. Again. Did it go okay? She remembered me for a second. That's good. I lean back in the seat and study his profile as he backs out of the parking space and pulls out of the lot. Yeah, it is. He glances at me for a moment before focusing back on the road. Want to grab something to eat before we pick up Ainsley? I think I saw a diner on the way here. You like diners? He smirks at me. I like food. A diner sounds nice. I look out the window for a second, watching some colorful houses pass us by. What made you start baking? Did you always like doing it? You're a good cook, too. You must practice. One of his shoulders lifts. I cooked a lot for myself growing up. Sometimes I'd cook for my foster siblings if I was in a house with them. I couldn't just feed them ramen all the time, so I picked up a thing or two and got better at it. And the baking? I pry. He pulls into a diner just down the road from the nursing home. It's a cute little establishment tucked back on its own. When I look at him, I see his cheeks stained pink. I'd watch a lot of baking shows on TV, liked what I saw, and would mess around in the kitchen once I saved up and got my own place. I never wanted to do it when I lived in a home, because a lot of times the foster parents didn't like you using their stuff or making a mess. Like I said, I was pretty lucky with who I was placed with. Didn't mean I wanted to test them. He doesn't give me a chance to answer before he unbuckles and tips his chin toward the diner. Come on, we can talk more inside. I have a feeling you have more questions. I grin. You'd be right. He chuckles and leads us in, his hand wrapped in mine as we're told to find a seat wherever we want. East picks a table in the back corner, away from other people. We sit across from each other and thank the waitress that comes and gives us menus and asks for our drink orders. When we're alone, I ignore the laminated menu in front of me. Foster care sounds like it taught you a lot. Cooking, baking. Did you draw too? You've mentioned having sketchbooks filled with drawings from over the years. He glances up from the menu.
Yeah. My foster dad got me a sketchbook when he saw me using scrap paper from old school notebooks. He wasn't a bad guy. Maybe a little distant, but left us alone for the most part.
How many homes were you in? The waitress comes back with our drinks, 2 waters, before asking if we need more time to decide. We both nod. I watch her walk away as Easton looks back to the menu.
4. Would have been 3, but the elderly woman I stayed with for a while passed away.
I frown. That's so sad. He shrugs. I give him a break to look over what they serve, deciding on a chicken sandwich and fries. We're quiet until the waitress comes back and takes our order, grabbing the menus and leaving us be. Sipping my water, I watch him stare at me before I decide to say anything again. I struggled figuring out what I wanted to do for a while. Did you always know you wanted to be an artist? He nods.
Tattoos tell stories, and I've always wanted to use my art to do that.
His eyes go to his sleeve.
Each tattoo I have is a story behind it. I never want to make a permanent mark that doesn't mean something to me. After I got out of the system, I met Jay. I'd sold some drawings here and there to save up to get a cheap apartment a few hours away. Got commissioned for doing a few tattoo designs. Jay saw some of the stuff I drew and asked if I was interested doing a little interning at a shop he worked at. I was poor and not stupid enough to pass it up. He gave me a chance, gave me a nicer place to stay when I told him where I lived, and the rest is history.
You guys are close, huh?
He's practically my brother.
That makes me smile. That's kind of how I am with Jenna. She's been there for me through thick and thin, even when I pushed her away. She wouldn't let me.
You two met in college, right?
I tell him all about the orientation we met in, how she knew from that day we were destined to be friends. Me? I was shy and awkward and wondering why somebody as confident as her even bothered. I stayed in the corner and never talked to anybody. Then we shared some gen eds together and we got closer. She insisted it was fate, and I bought into it, knowing I could use a friend on campus since Danny went to a different college. I told her all about him, about my feelings, about his girlfriend at the time. She bought me ice cream when their relationship developed and alcohol when they got engaged. And after his death, she slept at my apartment every single night, holding me together when I wanted to fall apart. I told her everything except the reason he stormed out. It hurt too much to admit, to tell her I was responsible. I know she would have told me I was being stupid, scolded me, and I couldn't hear that. I know now that I was wrong for holding on to that guilt for so long. We're halfway through lunch when I study his ink. My eyes trail over the beautiful flowers.
Did you draw all of the tattoos on you?
Jay did some, he admits,
but I did most of them.
He points to the ones he did, trailing his fingers over one of the roses. Why the flowers? He seems attached to the one he's touching, maybe not even realizing that he's doing it. He sits back in his chair, blinking down at his arm before meeting my gaze.
Roses were my mother's favorite flower.
My eyes widen at his reply.
I lied to you before. I did find my parents. My father left my mother shortly after they abandoned me. He was shot and killed in a hit-and-run not long ago. My mother found me about 5 years ago and reached out, asking if I'd be interested in meeting. Jay drove me to the place we agreed on and stayed in the car while I spoke with her. She was dying of breast cancer. Said it was karma for what she'd done. I didn't talk to her for more than an hour, but I learned a lot. She loved roses. She enjoyed baking. She dreamt of being an artist, but never made it happen. She seemed proud of me.
Sadness fills me as he trails off to look at something behind me. It sounds like you two have a lot in common.
Had. She died shortly after we met.
I'm sorry, Easton.
I don't think it was karma, he says, blinking and clearing the sullen look filling his eyes. He wets his lips. But I didn't tell her that. I let her think it was. I've thought a lot about how that might have made a difference somehow in how she felt. Like she got closure. I was pissed off, though.
You had a right to be.
He rubs his arm. I shouldn't have treated her like that. She was my mother, after all. It's why I drew the rose and had Jay help me with the details. It's my way of saying sorry, of remembering her.
That's very sweet of you. Once again, he shrugs. What about the skull?
I ask, resting my elbow on the table and my chin in my palm. His grin is sly. The death of innocence. My brows arch. Deep. More like demented. I shake my head. You're far from it. He meets my eyes. I don't always feel like it. What I did to my mother still gets to me. I'm moody, in case you haven't noticed. I shut down easily and react without thinking sometimes. I'm not an easy person to like. Maybe not, I agree. I reach out and touch his hand. But you're an easy person to love. Even if you weren't, I'd still do it. His lips part. Like you said, we'll fight and make up. It's what couples do. Nothing is easy about being with the person you're meant for. We're only human, demented or not. Though no matter what he believes, I'll never think of him as that. He doesn't have to answer me. I've learned from Ainsley that love is more than a spoken word. Chapter 32. Adjusting my curled red hair over my shoulders and fixing my cap, I smile at my reflection in the mirror and move off to the side while other graduates finish preparing themselves for commencement. I'm flattening out my white gown when I notice Carter standing by the back wall watching me. I smile and wave, walking over to him in heels that Jenna made me wear with my new black dress Mom helped her pick out for me. He assesses me with nothing more than a friendly smile, bumping my arm with his. Big day today. You look lovely. Thanks. I glance at the room of women behind me, all eagerly talking amongst themselves. It seems like a long time coming. You've gone far, he comments. I saw your family in the audience. Jesse saved me a seat next to him and Ren. My eyes widen. They're both here? He nods once, sliding his hands in his usual dress pants. They're right next to your parents and Ainsley, though Ainsley was on somebody else's lap. His lips twitch upward in a knowing way. Dark hair, tattoos, younger guy. He and Ainsley are out there making faces at each other. Easton. I'm surprised she's not sitting on Jesse's lap. She's got a huge crush on my brother. He totally feeds into it. He doesn't think I know, but he brings her candy when he visits. It's not often, but it's their tradition. Carter laughs. I'll make sure to bring up their future nuptials to him when I take my seat. I just wanted to check in on you and say congratulations. I smile. I appreciate it. It's him, right? The guy out there? Yeah, that's Easton. He's good with her. I rub my arm. You're really okay with how everything happened? I know you didn't have to come, so I'm glad you did. And you defended me to my brother, which I really do appreciate. I know I didn't say so when we saw each other after, but it meant a lot. And talking about Easton just seems... A little weird, he offers casually. Kind of. He shakes his head, seemingly not bothered at all about it. I defended you because they had no right talking about you the way they were. And I'm supportive of this Easton guy because I can see he's good to you and for you. There's a light in your eyes that was lacking before, Piper. I'll never be upset over that, even if I didn't get the girl. But you will. One day, he agrees. One day. He gestures toward the door. I should head out. Your brother told me he'd give up my seat to the highest bidder if I didn't come back at a reasonable time. You must have gotten good seats if he thinks he can make money off them, I muse. You better go before Jesse does sell your seats. I'm picturing an auction. I wouldn't put it past him. You should have seen what he did during my high school graduation. His brows arch. What did he do? He blew an air horn and started howling when they called my name. I laugh, brushing hair behind my ear. It was embarrassing, but it felt like the first time we were siblings. Then Danny joined in, and I wanted to murder them. Do you think he'll cause a scene today? I doubt he will. I wasn't even sure he and Ren would come, so I have no clue what to expect from them. Whatever it is, it'll be interesting. Though I wouldn't mind if he were quiet. Just showing up means something to me. When we say our goodbyes, we're given a 5-minute warning before lining up. I take a deep breath and smile to myself, knowing I'm moments away from moving forward with my life. Walking across stage once my name is called, I stop dead in my tracks when I hear my friends and family yell. But it's not my older brother's loud cheers, or my father's even louder clapping. It's a high-pitched scream that comes from the same section. There, perched on Easton's shoulders, is Ainsley. And she cheers.
Tears instantly flood my face as I watch her scream and smile and clap, all while Easton holds onto her so she doesn't fall. Both my parents watch me with proud expressions as I snap myself out of the shock and finish my walk. Instead of going back to my seat, I run over to where my family sits. Ainsley wraps her arms around my neck, latching onto my body as soon as I'm in reach. I squeeze her to me like I can absorb the sound she made. She doesn't say another word, and I'm okay with that. She signs, "I love you." I kiss her cheek, her forehead, her hair, everywhere before whispering, "I love you too." Her eyes go from me to Easton, where she signs something I can't quite make out because of the angle I hold her. But he does something I don't expect. He signs back. He signs back. It's my father who wraps me in a hug when I finally make it back into the crowd of family and friends watching the graduating class. He kisses the side of my head and congratulates me, flicking my nose and calling me a brat. I beam at him over the name I haven't heard him call me in forever. "Proud of you," he says against the top of my head, finally letting me go. "Thanks, Dad." Jesse walks over to me and ruffles my hair like he used to when I was younger. Like old times, I swat his hand away as he draws me in for a quick hug. It's a nice gesture, but awkward. We haven't spoken since the incident on campus. I didn't know what to say, and evidently neither did he. I'm used to it, though, so I never let my mind ponder it. Ren comes up to me and smiles. "I'm really happy for you, Piper. You've done so many amazing things and accomplished a lot despite the circumstances." Her smile falters for a moment before she adds, "And I'm truly sorry for how I've acted. You didn't deserve it." I glance between her and my brother, knowing everybody else is waiting for a response from me too. Carter stands off to the side, hands in his pockets, interested in what I'll say. He's asked me once since the tense conversation if I've reached out to either of them, but I admitted I couldn't be the one to invest energy into building a relationship I wasn't sure they wanted. Thankfully, he understood. "Thank you, Ren. For what it's worth, I know you and my brother will make great parents. You're the kind of people who are meant to have kids." She pulls me into a hug, her arms gentle around me. Quietly, she whispers, "Even though you didn't plan for it, you are too. I wouldn't have been able to do what you did. Part of me has always been jealous of how you handled it." I snort as she pulls away. "There's nothing to be jealous over. I'm a mess. If it weren't for my family and friends, I wouldn't have managed. Your family is amazing." They are. We smile and step back from each other, Ainsley and Easton walking over before Carter can say anything. Ainsley wraps her arms around my legs and stares up at me as Easton hooks an arm around my back and tugs me into him. His lips caress my ear. "Your father informed me he owns an old paintball gun of your brother's, and that it hurts more than a real bullet." I laugh and look at Dad, who's grinning at me from beside Mom like he knows what I'm being told. They both watch us knowingly as I reach up and wrap my arms around his neck. "He heard he likes you. You're safe." He kisses my cheek and pulls back, shooting me a wink before wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "Good. Can't say I want to know what it's like to be shot by a paintball gun." Jesse pipes up, eyes sparkling. "Want to know what it'd be like to get shot by a real one?" Ren rolls her eyes and leans into my brother, letting him tug her against his side before draping an arm over her shoulder. "Good thing you're both awful shots then, huh?" "Hey," the men say simultaneously. There's a tug on my dress, causing me to glance down at Ainsley. She moves her hands, wanting me to kneel closer to her. "What's up, Nugget?" Her bottom lip gets drawn into her mouth. When it pops out, her lips open like she's going to say something, but doesn't. She tries again, then furrows her brows in frustration. I swipe hair out of her face. "It's okay. I don't expect you to say anything. You being here with me is all I need." Her hand goes to my cheek for a moment before she signs. "I think Daddy is here." I blink. "What?" She looks up to the sky. I do the same, seeing the sun in the cloudless sky. They were outside any chance the weather was nice. I always envied how tan they got from being out for even an hour playing. When I meet her eyes again, I nod. I sign. I think he's here too. She smiles at me. I stand and take her hand and follow my family toward the parking lot. Easton keeps his steps in line with mine, his eyes going back to Carter where he walks by my father. They talk in low murmurs about who knows what, but I focus on how guarded East's eyes are. He's a good guy, I tell him, watching his nose flare slightly. I know you're probably not the biggest fan of him, but he is. He huffs out a sigh before nodding.
I know he is, Piper. Doesn't mean I can't glare at the guy knowing where his hands have been.
I glare in caution, knowing my family has yet to discover what he's referring to. I know Carter will keep his word about staying quiet. Neither of us benefits from them knowing anything happened. He presses a kiss against my temple as my brother walks over, one of his hands shoved into his black jeans. He's dressed up compared to his normal grease-stained denim and Dickie shirt.
I was wondering if we could talk for a second.
His eyes go between Easton and me, his brows going up in weight.
It won't take long.
I nod and watch Easton take Ainsley's hand while I walk off to the side with Jessie by my side. For a moment, we're quiet. Not knowing what to say, I cross my arms on my chest and rock back on my heels. My eyes trail back to where Ainsley and Easton communicate, their hands moving fast. Easton knows sign language. He learned. It thickens my throat and squeezes my chest and makes everything feel lighter. The man I love is speaking with the little girl I love in a way she doesn't feel pressured or ashamed. It makes me love him that much more.
I do love you,
he says. I meet his eyes, which are full of sorrow and hesitancy.
I know I'm shitty at showing it, but I'm not lying. Things have been tough with Ren, and I took sides even though I shouldn't have. I hate seeing her upset, and I knew watching you and Ainsley was hard for her. That doesn't excuse the way I treated you, the way either of us did.
Honestly, Jessie, it's okay. He shakes his head adamantly.
It's not, though. You always do that. You make light of situations and see the best in people, even when we don't deserve it. It's one of the things I love about you, but it worries me too. I don't want to see you get hurt because you care.
I manage to shrug. I won't lie and say I haven't been hurt by the way you've acted toward me over the years, but it isn't like I don't understand. If I were in Ren's shoes, I'd feel the same way. He rubs his jaw.
It doesn't justify me brushing you off in the past. You said that I have a lot to thank your mother for, and you're right. Dad and your mom gave me a home when I needed one, and I did everything not to be there because it didn't feel like one. Not without my mom and sister. You remind me of Hannah, a lot like her. Sometimes I wonder what she'd be like if she hadn't ended it. If she'd be like you, hard-working, determined. We didn't have the best role model in our mother, and Hannah was a lot like her. In some ways, I resented her for it. I couldn't control Hannah or help her. Even if I'd known what she was planning, I doubt it would have made a difference. That probably pisses me off the most, you know? It was easier to keep you at a distance because I didn't want to think about Hannah or how badly I screwed up being her brother. Carter is right, though. You don't deserve the treatment you've been given, and I can see why you've wondered if I love you or not. But I do. You're my sister, and I love you.
My heart swells slightly in my chest. I know it may seem unbelievable right now, but you're not responsible for your sister's death. Trust me, I know what it's like to hold on to blame. It's draining, though. She was sick, and she wanted an out. But I know Hannah loved you. I remember all the times you guys would visit Dad, and she'd be protective of you, even though she was younger. Maybe it's cliché to hear, but she'd want you to move on and stop blaming yourself for what she did. He looks away for a moment, staring off at the departing crowd coming from the field where commencement was held.
I know, Piper. It just doesn't seem like it'll get easier. Missing her, wondering about her.
I reach for his hand. You'll always do that stuff, but it will get better. Maybe not the pain of knowing they're gone, but the feeling that weighs us down like we could have stopped it. Nobody can stop what's meant to be, even if we think it's cruel.
Like Danny?
I nod. When you went to the funeral with me, it meant the world. I couldn't have possibly told you then how much I needed you. It was just like you knew. It isn't like I thought you hated me, Jessie. I just wasn't sure what we were going to be when you pulled away after that.
It was another person dying too soon.
I got that better than anyone. The look in his eyes that day was morbidly empty. Like he was there, but not. He never cried, just stayed pale as the service went on. Still, he was there for me, patting my hand, asking if I was okay. That day, he was my brother, a man who was struggling, a man who was remembering. We both suffered loss. "Are we okay?" he asks quietly, looking like he sincerely doesn't know what I'll answer with. I think we've experienced too much loss to willingly lose any form of a relationship, even a strained one. "Of course we are. You're my brother." He nods and gestures for us to head back to our waiting family. "You know," he says as we walk side by side, "Carter is a good guy. If he were younger, I'd tell you to go for it. You two would have been good together." Pressing my lips together, I clear my throat and glance at the man in question, who's talking with my parents still. "Maybe in a different lifetime." His chuckle is light. "Yeah, maybe." Easton reaches out for me as soon as I near him, and when our fingers connect, everything in me eases. My mind, my heart, my racing thoughts. With him, I rise from the depths I've been drowning in for all these years and feel like I can breathe again. No longer afraid of what lingers in the murkiness, I step into the clear water and let all the pain wash away. Epilogue. Ainsley. My legs swing back and forth from the plastic blue chair in the office as I listen to Piper, my mother, speak in hushed murmurs with the younger secretary. Her face is full of determination, the kind that's fierce. Easton, my father, for all intents and purposes, says that fierceness is why he loves her so much, why he married her. I think about the man with pretty pictures inked all over his arm and smile to myself. Easton may not be my real father, but he's taken me in like mine would have wanted, just like Piper. We've been together for as long as I can remember, because I don't know my own mother. Sometimes I can't even remember what my father looks like or sounds like, even though I had 3 years with him before he died. Nothing ever surfaces when Piper tells me stories of their friendship or of me and him when I was little. I wonder if that's how it's supposed to be. Like maybe all I'm meant to remember is Piper's and Easton's love for me. I've never let myself feel sad from the lack of memories of my real parents, because Piper and Easton have never felt like anything but the real thing. I'm lucky to have them, to see their love, their happiness. When you're a wallflower with no voice, people seem to think you can't hear, too. I know that Joel Iverson's mom likes to drink a lot, and that his father is gone because the teachers always gossip about how sad his home life is when they think nobody can hear them. Or how Maisie Hayes lives with her grandparents because her mom and dad are always traveling for some big important jobs they have. People have it worse than me. My parents are dead, but I have new ones who love me a lot. It's why my mother is here, trying to get a meeting with the new principal since the last one was fired. Principal Harris was never fit for the job, but nobody knows anything about the new person taking over. She wants to fix that. The side door of the office opens, and a blonde woman and boy walk in. Her hand is on his shoulder, his head pointed toward the tile floor in avoidance. My head tilts as I take him in, seeing the nervousness radiate off him. New kid. There's no doubt in my mind that he's the woman's biological son. They have the same shade hair and similar facial features. She's protective as she speaks with the other graying secretary, who mans the visitor's sign-in sheet like a hawk, her hand rubbing the back of his shoulders in comfort. My eyes catch something over his ear, perched on his skull, surrounded by his hair. Narrowing my eyes, I study the object in uncertainty. I break my gaze when I see the boy shift, his weight moving from one foot to another as our mothers talk. He catches my gaze, but I don't look away. I keep swinging my legs and listening to my mother speak to his in familiarity. Maybe they're not new because they know each other, and surprise floods my body when I hear my biological father's name mentioned. The boy walks over to me without hesitation while our mothers reacquaint themselves. It's hard to listen to them and pay attention to the boy, who stops just a few inches away. Interest fills his eyes as he greets me with a quiet hello. My lips part, and I tell myself to force out the 2 little letters it would take to show him I'm not being mean. But no words escape my lips. In defeat, I close them and look down at my lap for a moment. His shoes appear in my line of vision, my gaze lingering upward to see him standing closer as his hands raise. I gape as he signs to me, his hands moving skillfully. He signs, "I'm Milo." I know in that same instant that he and I are going to be best friends, and based on the way our mothers look at us in awe, they can tell something shifted drastically. Because now, I won't be alone, and neither will Milo.
This has been Into the Water by B. Celeste, performed by Heather Costa, a member of SAG-AFTRA. Editing and post-production by Soundscape Audio. Text copyright 2020 by B. Celeste. Production copyright 2020. This has been a High Gravity Productions presentation.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.